was kind of like jabbing him like that in the stomach, like, is that okay, right? He tries to take my head off. But he ended up hitting me with, of all things, and I fought a lot of lefties, I forgot he was a lefty. And I went right into an uppercut, and he hit me right in the solar plex the first 10 seconds and knocked all the wind out of me.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
I just did an ice blend. I do it every morning. I went out to Tractor Supply and I bought one of them horse troughs made by Rubbermaid. I made a lid for it. I built all kinds of stuff.
See, everyone's starting to do that.
It was because of Simon Aries and Wahlberg and people like that and McGregor. And I'm thinking, there's got to be something to this. And I've been wanting to try it, you know?
Yeah, I dabbled in it. There was like this, I got an ad on Instagram. And it was like this inflatable one. But like I can't fit, I'm like this in it. And it was just miserable. So I did it for like a week. And then I was like, I'll make a new one.
No.
And everyone's doing this Rubbermaid one, the troughs and stuff. There's these like plans online you can buy. You can get like a water cooler, purifier.
You don't need that. You don't need that. So that adds thousands of dollars to it. You don't need that.
That adds too much money.
No, I all my juice bottles are filled and frozen, and I just drop them in. I keep the lid closed because the way I made the lid on it, and I put hinges and everything on it. I'll show you a picture after we're done, but I insulate it. So it stays at like 50-some degrees, and I throw them bottles in, and I get it done. Like I only go in 51, 52 to like 57, because that's, you know, reading about it, that's all you need.
Yeah, you're going 30 degrees. Like
No.
you're starting to like.
I tried
do more harm.
43 when it first comes in from the spigot. You gotta remember that pipe's underground, so it's cold. It comes in at 43 degrees. Try getting in that. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, like I already had a heart attack at one point. I got a stint in, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, no, I'm not playing with that.
Who's gonna pull me out of this?
Then you drown because you're
Then
cold.
I got the idea, hey, maybe I should let my heart doctor know that I'm doing ice plunges. See if it's okay.
And what were their thoughts on this?
Go right ahead.
They're big on that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll get right into
But the
it.
inflation.
The inflation of the...
Knocking down the inflation. You know, my joints.
Oh, inflammation, yeah.
Well,
that accounts for a lot of today's issues.
Yes.
That inflammation, like you get pain in your hands, your feet, these sicknesses, bloating, like all stems from inflammation.
Dude, and you know, a lot of it's food too, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And during this time of year, you know, I'm like snacking. I can't wait to get down to Florida. I'm leaving for Florida at the end of this month. I'm going to be, if everything works out right, I will be reappointed to my position for a third term. You know, and that should be when the Senate's done with the budget hearings. They're doing budget hearings right now.
So it's like a government position.
You wouldn't believe it. Here I am. Well, go ahead. Let's start.
We're started, baby.
Oh,
and for those of you who don't know, I'm here with the PA Athletic Commissioner, Rick Steigerwald, and I feel like that's just well, you're not. Are you wearing black jeans? I saw.
Nope.
That's good. I saw one of your articles online where they made you change your pants.
They did.
See, I didn't even make you change your pants coming in.
You know
here.
what? That's amazing. But you should see me thinking about what pants to wear.
Were you thinking about it?
Yeah, I do. As I get older, yeah, I like to dress nice.
I was like, I got to bring that up, see if he remembers that interview, making you change your pants.
So the other thing that was in when they did the story of the Super Bowl, it was called True Story with Ed Helms and Randall Parks. That was in Hollywood. They brought me out there like I felt Hollywood too. I had a limo, you know, I had a real nice place to stay. I had a full gym in it, and all them mountains were around there.
Yeah, this ain't Hollywood. We're in the slums of Pittsburgh, I like to call it, because we're in the mix.
This is my hood. I took pictures when I got here.
Really?
In the parking lot. Yeah, this is my
Full
place.
circle, baby. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, just you're not just a commissioner, but like you walk the walk, you talk the talk. You're former amateur champion. You refereed over 500 matches. Hall of Fame inductee. When's that come into play?
That'll be in October out in Philadelphia. That's where they have the Boxing Hall of Fame, PA Boxing Hall of Fame.
How'd that come to be? Obviously, given your rap sheet, but like, did they reach out to you? How were you feeling? Like, how was that process of you being notified you're about to be inducted?
Well, I got to tell you, I had been nominated a couple times for that and a couple other ones, you know. And the first time, you know, you get really excited, and then it doesn't happen, you know.
Ooh, yeah.
And then you're like, I ain't going there no more. I'm not letting myself get, you know, hyped up about it, you know. And so when I did get the call, I was in a meeting, and I seen the number, and I knew the number, the president of the Hall of Fame. And I thought, oh, geez, I better answer this. And I went outside, and I answered it, and I was wincing my eyes, you know. I'm like, waiting to hear no. And he said, hey, good news. You're going into the PA Hall of Fame, Boxing Hall of Fame. And right then, man, I had this, like, chills, and I had this feeling, and I looked up, and I thought, the first thing I thought of was my mom and dad.
Wow.
And I thought, man, this might fill, you know. You know, there was a time when I was a hoodlum down here on this north side. And, you know, I always tried to make it up for them when I realized, you know, in my 20s what was going on, you know. And I had a family, you know. I had a little girl, little baby girl, and I was like, man, you got to stop this, you know. And I love being in the nuance of the north side. Like, I was one of the boys. You know, nothing went on that I didn't know about. And whatever I wanted to get involved in, I could get involved in. And then there came that day, you know, with, you know, having kids and whatnot, you know. I'm glad I have this background.
I feel the same. First off, congratulations. And I feel the same way. You know, growing up in Erie, my life could have went completely differently. You know, I was involved in things, and being a part of a bigger organization that kind of made you feel invincible, right? And then I have my daughter, and I'm like, man, is this the life I want her to live? No, I want her as far away from this. So how can I still do this and keep her away from it? It just doesn't happen. I know some people try to believe it can, like, oh, I'll keep my kid away. Or they involve the kid, and that's just horrible. But there comes a point where you're like, man, I'm meant for so much more. How do I go about that? And I had to break away from those roots. And that was part of the reason I left. Yes, what brings me over here? You know, I applied for work, but I could have applied for work anywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, so I was like, I gotta get out as far and fast as possible. Pittsburgh was the most suitable. I was like, yeah, you know, it's far enough away where I can focus on myself and do what I got to do, but it's close enough that
Pittsburgh's a great town, you know.
I love it.
It is like, you know, there's a pulse here, you know. Don't get me wrong, you know, it's like a third of the size of Philadelphia. If you ever been to Philly,
I have been.
But Philly's cool, you know.
Philly's cool, but Pittsburgh has it's very unique. I've talked to people from all over the country, all over the world, you know, and they don't knock other cities, but they're like, man, there's something about Pittsburgh. When you're driving in, you see the bridges, you see the stadium, you see the river. Like it's very unique. It's a big city, but it's a small city. Everyone from Pittsburgh knows everyone from Pittsburgh, you know, and it's crazy how like territorial people are, right? Like if you're from Shadyside, if you're from Lawrenceville, you will grow up, your family will grow up, you'll have kids, and you'll all stay relatively in that area. Mm-hmm. But like when you move here, being an outsider, you just think it's one big city. But it's everyone's so like, no, this is my neighborhood. This is where I grew up. I went to school here. I went here. And you're like, dude, there's so much to Pittsburgh, and you just stay in this little corner.
Even if you move away, excuse me, you move back. Everybody I know is kids that moved away and stuff, they end up back in Pittsburgh because they find out when they're out there, there's no place like this, you know, where somebody knows somebody knows somebody knows somebody, or you're related. It's like my last name is Steigerwald. You know, you look in the phone book, you could swing a cat, you know, and hit 30 Steigerwalds, you know? And, you know, I kind of like that, you know? And you talk about the neighborhood thing. That's a true story about Pittsburgh. You couldn't go into other neighborhoods. You know, when I was growing up, going to Perry High School and Westview dances and all that stuff, it was all sectioned off. You had Federal Street over here, you had Brighton Road over here, you had Perrysville Avenue over here, and you had Lower East High Street over here. And don't go in that other area and try to dance with one of them their girls. You'll get hit with a Coke bottle.
Oh, I've heard.
And that's the old Coke bottles.
Yeah, the glass Coke bottles.
They didn't break.
Well, like Lawrenceville, too. That's one of the neighborhoods that comes to mind when I talk about this, because Lawrenceville, you go there now, it's all the coffee shops, but back in the day, it wasn't any of that. They kind of like
that changes. That changeover there's amazing. It blows my mind every time I get on. Every store is filled.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of new boutiques and all
the
these.
Strip?
Yes.
The Strip, they redid that terminal, and now it's like you can't go there on a weekend because you can't find parking. You have to like Uber in or walk in because it's just so packed, so busy. And I love to see that. Yeah. I love to see the life in a city. I'll go to cities and like after 6, it's just shut down. I'm like, man.
Well, I boxed in Lawrenceville, and also Lawrenceville's, Fritzy Zivic, world champion, lightweight world champion. Fritzy Zivic, you ever heard of that name?
Yeah,
he's from Lawrenceville, and his brother Pete owned the Zivic's bar over there. And then you had the Boys Club, and that's where I boxed at the Boys Club. I go over there, and I back in the day. This is in the '80s when I first started lifting. I never lifted. I was always exercising, pull-ups, sit-ups. Me and my dog. I had a boxer dog by the name of Bruno.
That'd be Bruno.
I got him in '64 when Bruno Sammartino won the world championship. We kind of believed, but me and my brothers, there was 5 boys. We wrestled all the time. Forearms, full Nelsons, flips. My mom was like a permanent referee.
I see where you got it from. When did you get into the fighting world? I read you started fairly young where you started boxing and training.
Yeah, I was real lucky with that. Me and my cousin, this is how it started. Me and my cousin, Mike, who lived up the street, we had annual fights every year. We'd get sick of loafing together, and we'd have our fights 4 times a year when the weather changed. And spring and summer, I usually won, And so it's springtime, and and he would win in the winter ones, the fall and the winter. And anyhow, I'm fighting him at the top of our street, right in the middle of the street. And I'm on top, so I'm winning, right? This is no punching, But I got him down, and it's my time to win. And this muscle dude that's in high school already comes out his door. He lived right there. And he didn't like me, so he flipped us. Put him on top. Well, this guy's coming up the street. He's got a suit coat on and a tie, glasses, and his books. And he stops and he says to the guy, "Hey, what are you doing? You should be breaking that up." And it goes on and on like that, Here he goes to Perry, too. But he's got a tie on, going to Perry. We thought he was a businessman, but we seen his books. He confronted the guy. The guy went in and got his dad, who was big, too, comes out. He took his coat off, folded it up, took his glasses off, undid his tie, put his hands up. Both of them guys walked in the door. They didn't want nothing to do with him. Anyhow, we're walking down the street. My cousin was a smart mouth. We're walking down, and I'm 10 and a half, and 5th grade, and we're going down, and my cousin was a smart mouth, like I said, and he I don't know, the guy didn't like him, and he said, "Hey, get out of here." We're walking down the street, and he said, "Where do you live?" I told him. He said, "Oh, we just moved in 2 doors from here." Yeah, he said, he looks at me, we stopped, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Hey, you know something? You're too little to be rolling around in the ground. You got to learn how to box." That was like, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like that.
My 2 older brothers, I'm the middle. My 2 older brothers were always tuning me up, especially my brother next up, not the oldest one, Paul. But George, me and him went at it our whole life,
Are you brothers if you're not fighting?
Right. I guess, now, thanks for saying that.
My brother, we fought over, now I'd win. And I tell him that. I look at him now I train, now I fight. And I look at him like, dude, I'll sit there. We'll be at like Thanksgiving. I'll be eating and I'll antagonize. I'll look at him and be like, I'd fuck you up right now, right? And he'd be like, let's go to the garage. I'm like, Mom, he wants to fight me.
Yeah. He started.
Yeah, he started. But I'll like antagonize.
Just wanted you to know before we go out there.
But like, I remember fighting over the front seat when we would call shotgun, right?
Right.
And I called shotgun. I'm entitled to the front seat. That's the rules. I don't make the rules. We go to the front seat. I get in the front seat and I lock the door. And he's like, "Open the door." I'm like, "No." Well, he goes around to the back And like, you know, back in the day, the old school cars, you had to like manually lock them. I didn't lock the back door. He opens the back door, and I'm trying to reach the back door to keep it closed. Dude, he pulls me out this car. We get into a fist fight. My mom is in the middle trying to break us up. She smacks us both, starts screaming at us both. He gets the front seat, obviously. I just sit in the back, and I'm like, but I got to hit him.
Yeah.
I got tuned up. But
Older brother or younger brother?
older brother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He would whoop my ass up and down the street. Not anymore though. So if you want to run it back, we can run it back. So you get into boxing then?
So he said to me that his dad had a boxing gym, and he was a city cop. And he said, you know, we live 2 doors, blah, blah, blah. I went flying in the door. I told my mom and dad. They never met him.
Just like, who's this guy?
Well, they knew he was a cop. See, back in the day, cops had that stigma. You know, we had cops on the beat. We all knew them. They knew us. You know, we had some were good, some were bad, you know. But you worked a relationship out with him. You stayed out of his hair. He stayed out of your hair. And that was good.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
that's how I grew up too.
We lived in unison, you know. And when we stepped out of unisons, they let you know. You spend the night down number 9. And then in the morning, you wake up and the door was open. You just walk out. Just walk out. There'd be a desk sergeant on there and be like, yeah.
Hey, you're done. Go.
Yeah.
All right, just leave?
Yeah,
just
you
leave.
go, I guess. And he'll be like, point.
Don't let me see you again.
He just point. Yeah. Out.
That's
right?
funny.
Excuse me. But I think that, you know, I got to tell you that he said, be at the house. There was no gym bags back then. This is what I'm trying to get at. This is like 66, somewhere, and 65, 66. No gym bags, right? They didn't invent them yet. So we used Gerber's bags, shopping bags, Brian's shopping bags with the handles on it. That was our gym bags. He said, be at the house. He said, get a shopping bag. He said, tennis shoes, dry T-shirt, and a bar of soap. That's all you need. I was there. He said, just come up, get in the car. And we would stop like at every corner, and would pick up 6, 7 kids. And we'd go over. Our gym was in the south side, right next to Deep's Bar. It was called Southside AC. And anyhow, when we went there was a bunch of pros there. The cops ran it. And, you know, the funny thing is about that is when you went in the door, it was right beside, there was a Western Auto there. And you had to go up the special steps, and you get there, and it was a door with a little peephole in it. You knock on the door, a guy would open the peephole, look at it, and let you in. Completely dark in there, except to the right, which we were told, do not look to the right. Just walk to the other end of the building and go up the steps. To the right, we did look. To the right.
Of course you did.
To the right was nothing but pool tables with them lights right over top them and telephones. So at 6:45 every night, you could hear all the phones ringing. You know, it was a numbers place, you know? And that was kind of like the trade-off. That's how things worked back then, right? And so you'd walk to the other end of the gym, and you'd go up, and I'm telling you something, as God as I'm sitting here, when I started up them steps and I heard them speed bags going and heavy bags and all the noise and the jumping rope, I wasn't even up there yet. And I just took a deep breath, and I said, I'm home. I'm home. I had played football on teams. I had basketball, baseball, but this was different. You know, I didn't need other players to help get to the goal that I wanted to get to.
It was all on you.
And I was sick of people pushing me around, beat me up. You know, not that I wouldn't fight you. They'd throw me over the hill, and then here he comes again. Like, I just kept coming back.
Those are the worst people to fight. Like, it's not the best fighters. It's the ones who just don't stop.
Yeah.
Just don't stop.
Well, I wasn't leaving, you know, and I was, throw me over again, I don't care, you know. And so this gave me, it was kind of like a rough age for me, you know. I was trying to figure out, you know, what was going on. And I ended up, I knew right then that was for me. And I didn't stop going until I was 17 and a half, 18 years old to that gym. I was there every night, 5 nights a week, me and Jack. And when I sparred pros all the time. We would spar 15 to 20 rounds in a round robin type thing. And it didn't matter your skill or what you were, a pro, amateur. You just kept rolling. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, you know. And they kind of do that today in the gyms, you know. But for back then, you know, they took you way beyond what you needed as far as round-wise was concerned. Way beyond it, you know. And I got in there, and I fit in. And they knew, Jack knew I was a tough kid. Because I heard him telling people, you know, it made me feel good. This kid, he's going to be. And the other policeman that was partners in the gym with him was Bill Ward. And he was an inspector policeman for the city. And just so happens that them two butted heads, you know, all the time. But he had a son that had been going to the gym for about a year. So he had a year on me. And every week he'd say, hey, how about them two sparring? Up to my trainer, Jack. How about them? Jack said, let him get it. Let him learn how to hold his hands. And finally, after like 2 weeks, I said, let me fight him. He punched the shit out of me. He punched the shit out of me. And I'm thinking, I got to stop this kid, man. This is just the jab, 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 you know? And I was raw as shit, and Jack's yelling at me what to do. I just El Kabonged him. And I broke his nose, knocked him down, blood everywhere, and he never, ever came back to the gym.
Ended his boxing career.
That was his end of his boxing career, yeah. But I fought with his older brother. In fact, his older brother's, I'm trying to bring him back into the fold. His name is Dr. Timothy Ward. He's over at, he runs Children's Orthopedics.
You're trying to bring him in now?
I'm trying to bring him back to help out with the doctor part of, you know, our progress and our procedures, you know, for the fights.
So after all these years, you're still connected with. See what I mean? Like everyone, like if you're from here, you're from here. This is what you do. Like it's hard to get away from.
A little side note: I'm working steam fitting in when they were redoing where the Peterson Center is now.
Yeah.
When it was Pitt Stadium, when they knocked it down, we put all the piping in the street into a vault, and then when they knocked it down, when they blew it up, imploded it, they just built a new one, and then all I had to do was pipe right out to the box. You know, big, you know, concrete box. And all the pipes ended there, and we blanked them off. And then they just had a pipe to there. But we went all the way up the street. I'm down in a ditch. I'm welding one day. I put my hood up. I'm laying in between two pieces of pipe. And I look up, and all the nurses used to sit on the wall right there, taking a break or smoke or whatever. And I look up, and who's there but Timmy Ward? I said, hey, what's up, Tim? He goes, Rick, what are you doing? I went up, my welding hood in my arm, and bullshitted with him, you know? He was a great fighter, man. He went to the Nationals quite a few times, but he still wears a bow tie, and nobody would believe. Sometimes I ran into people working in his office. They didn't know he was a fighter, and he was good. He went to the Nationals.
That and I love that part of fighting. Like you could be walking in the street and not have a clue.
You don't know.
Which is why it's like people who just start fights for no reason. It's like you don't train or fight. There's no way. Because if you trained and fought and you're around these people, dude, they come in all shapes and sizes and levels of experience, and you're out here on the street trying to pick a fight in the real world where there's no rules, no ref, no judges. Yeah. It's just like until one of you stops.
So that right there is the key. It's almost a phrase that I used. You know, we were trained, you know, fighters and MMA and boxers, we don't stop until you're done. Till you're done. I got you on the ground. You're knocked out or you're submitted. And it's the same in the street. And that's why in my street fighting career, which, you know, I'm kind of proud of, but it was a lesson. It was a lesson in my life. Like, if you grab that tiger by the tail, you better be ready to go. You better be ready. So I didn't start any trouble, but I never walked away from it either.
That's my motto. It's like I'll walk a mile to avoid a fight, but if a fight's inevitable, I ain't giving an inch.
Or you mess with my family.
Yeah, well, that's different,
right?
But like I'll be at a bar and like I'm bigger, so like people will like start shouldering me, and I'm like, sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
They're like, move. Okay, like you got that.
I'll even leave if I don't. You know, back in the day, if I'm not feeling it, if I'm feeling like, you know, I'm going to end up in a fight here, I'll leave. I'll go somewhere else where I'm wanted.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean.
No sense in fighting for free.
Well, exactly. And the other thing is, you know, with the beer muscles, you know, I can't tell you how many times back in my day, I'm clean and sober for 30 some years now, you know, and I got to tell you something. But back in the day when I was out there amongst them, these beer muscles, that's basically what it was. And they wanted a shot at the title. And I knew that. And I can tell you at least 6 times in my life where I said, hey, I'm messed up here. You're messed up. I'll meet you here tomorrow. And we'll finish it tomorrow, when we're not drunk. And nobody ever took me up on it.
They're like, nah, I'll pass on that.
Nobody ever took me up. I don't know why. But, it was kind of a thing with me because I'm so short. I think that this is the analogy of the whole thing is that I fought a lot of bigger guys. And I think a lot of it was, if I beat him, he's a little guy. If he beats me, he's a little guy to beat up a big guy. And that never looks good. So they were always in between, like, So if I could talk my way out of it, I did.
Yeah, because you don't lose. Like, at the end of the day, you're expected to lose, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So you have nothing to lose.
Yep.
And everything to gain. This person, hey, man, if I get tuned up, what are my friends going to say? What is my girl going to say if she's watching? Like,
so needless to say, I stayed out of bars. I would drink outside. I would drink in the field, Riverview Park. We loved at Riverview Park. Most of the time, you could see them blue shirts coming through the woods.
bye.
And you know what? They didn't care because they got the beer. You go back and say, took our beer, right?
And they didn't have to turn it in back in the day. Now
Nope.
everything's documented. Back in the day, they're like, hey, we just got a 6-pack.
No cameras. And it was always cool.
Dude, I grew up in the wrong age, I think.
You did.
That's kind of like my style.
But I feel like that too. I should have been, 40s and 50s, I watch them old gangster movies and I'm like that. I can relate.
Yeah, more up my alley right there. What was the moment that you decided, like, you obviously you're training now, you're sparring these guys, you're doing this because you want to learn how to fight. What was the moment you're like, I kind of want to make this a thing and like get into the, instead of, because you're learning self-defense, you're learning to defend yourself, you're probably tuning people up now. What led you to like pursue this on a professional level, kind of sanctioned, organized? Like, what was that moment?
Yeah,
for you?
so after 50-some amateur fights, and I only lost 4 fights, and 2 of them were the same guy, Machine Gun Kelly from the Hill District. He was 6'1", and I'm like 5'4". He was hitting me from across the ring, and it was hard to navigate. And finally, the time I am beating him down in Manchester here at St. Joe's Lead, he knew it was going to be over for him because I had him against the ropes. I wasn't letting him dance around, and I had him, and he bent underneath me and butted me intentionally in the eye. And the doctor said, I got to stop this fight. I begged him not to stop the fight. But it was going into my eye. It was across the crease right here, which is really sharp, And he knows he did it on purpose, And so, I knew, to fight these bigger guys like that, if I weighed more, I was going to fight taller guys than that. I remember fighting a guy, I was 125 pounds. He was 6 foot. Right? So he was just wide. So I had to figure out, like, where am I going to how am I going to do this,
Yeah, your target just became a lot smaller.
A lot smaller, especially now he's sideways too, a lot. And he's hit me from across the ring with them long arms, So navigating all that, I had my dad with me. I didn't have to worry about all that stuff. And with my dad in my corner, he was like, my dad was in the Navy for 8 years. He was like a captain of our ship. And if my dad told you something, you knew it was solid. It wasn't guessing. He was very calculated on what he said. He was a very smart guy. People said about him when he died at the Steamfitters that if you opened a dictionary and looked up Steamfitter, you see your dad's picture. That's how they felt about him, And I'm 3rd generation. My grandpa was in, my dad, my grandpa, all his brothers, my dad, and my brothers. And now my nephew's in, and then we got another, there'll be a 5th generation hopefully this year.
That's awesome.
It is. And it gives you a sense of belong. I'm part of history. Our union's been here for 112 years. There's been a Steigerwald in there from day one. That means something to me. I just honored a bunch of steamfitters that fought back in the day last year, the Golden Gloves up at our Steamfitter Union Hall in Harmony. And I honored 25 guys last year that fought in the 60s and 70s with me that won the Golden Gloves. And I got to tell you something, man. Their wives come up to me and they said, this is, from the moment you called him, you changed his life. He wasn't doing good. You picked him up. Somebody recognized him, you know? And I brought him in the ring and they talked about their careers. I had them send me little bios. Most of them, their wives they're older now, their wives had to write them.
Yeah.
But I got them, and I'm glad I did. 2 of them have passed since then. One is Ernie Sharif, who they called him Little Ernie Page. He fought in Pittsburgh, up in the Hill District for Charlie Daniels. And the other one's Ronnie Francis, who was a bus driver here in the city, but he was a hell of a fighter back in the day. He helped train me for a little bit. You know, he was a lot older than me. So I think, you know, there's a history, there's a rich history, and I'm a part of it.
It's
Rooney,
a culture.
old man Rooney fought. You know, he was a great fighter. He was going to the Olympics and a whole bit, you know. He was going to be a good pro. And then who knows what happened there. You know, the wars happened and everybody went to war and, you know, things happened. But look where he ended up, right? He's another one. He was resilient.
And that I love the stories of fighters because you get the fighters who, quote unquote, don't make it in fighting, but then they excel at something else because that's just where their life went. You know, and you had a moment like that where you were at the pinnacle of your boxing career, and your boxing career was at the hands of a judge. And you mentioned
3 judges.
You mentioned
Philadelphia.
Yeah, you mentioned this is one of those sports where it's like, this is on me.
Yeah.
Well, you get in this ring, and sometimes it may not be on you. If you don't finish the fight, you're listening to 3 people tell you how you did.
Yeah.
When you went in there and gave everything.
Yeah.
How was that moment for you where, because in reading in your story and stuff, this was a moment that kind of changed the trajectory of your life.
It did. So, you know, it's 1977, like I had mentioned to you earlier, that I almost went to the Marines. You know, I went down, there was no work in Pittsburgh, 76, 77. The snow was so high here, they couldn't even get the garbage off side slopes. And I went down and I talked to all the recruiters, and they kept saying, see the Marine recruiter? And the only thing I want to guarantee was I get a shot at the boxing team. I was a good boxer, and I knew it, you know, and I thought, they need me.
Hey.
Right?
If you believe in yourself that much,
I did.
Absolutely.
And I said, you know, I wanted that, and I wanted a shot at Special Forces. And I remember the Marine recruiter, he because he wasn't there in the beginning. They all kept saying, every other recruiter from Army, Navy, and all them, they kept saying, no, you got to see the Marine recruiter. And he was out to lunch, and when he came back, he was this probably 50-some-year-old guy with a body of a 30-year-old. And he tried to get me to do the muscle test. You know, how many pull-ups can you do? I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. I'm just here to find out. Here's what I want. And he said, kid, the only thing that I guarantee you is you get home after boot camp. And I went home and talked to my dad about it, who'd been in the Navy. My grandpa was in the Army. My brother was in the Marines, Parris Island, the whole bit. So I saw what Marine Corps boot camp was like. We watched them graduate. It was no easy day, but I knew I could do it. I was worried that, because my brother had told me that they talk about your mom a lot.
Oh, they get in your head.
And I was tight with my mom. I'm still tight with her, you know. Her birthday's in 3 days on the 13th, and my dad's is today.
Oh,
now they're both passed, you know.
Happy birthday to them.
Yeah, I'll stop by, you know, the mausoleum. I always go there. That's my spot, you know, where I can talk to my mom, you know. And it always chokes me up, you know. When we were talking before, you know, my first thought was that they'd just be proud of me, you know, that I straightened out.
That's a beautiful thing, because there's a lot of people today with parents alive today, and they're not getting along. And like, I try to talk to them, and I'm like, man, like, they're not always going to be here.
True story.
Like, the day they're gone, you're going to regret all, like, how you've been moving and how you've approached a relationship. Knowing that, why don't we do something about it now? There's always an opportunity.
Put the petty shit aside.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it never changes. I have an older daughter, you know, I'm not even going to say her age, but it makes me look a lot older if I told it to you. But she, you know, we were having a little tiff, you know, and a while, and finally it just dawned on me one day, because I'm 70 now, and I was like, you know what? I got to be the bigger person here. She's trying to show me that she can handle this life without me always, oh, hey, how about this? Try this, do this. I just got to back off. And I got to let her live, and I got to let her make mistakes. And I got to beat her to catch her.
And that's hard as a parent because this is the most perfect thing you've ever created. Right? Like you're an amazing boxer. You have a rap sheet, Hall of Fame inductee, boxer, referee. But like, this is a life you created, a perfect life.
God gave me this.
And you want to make sure it's fruitful and amazing. And like, as parents, I do this with my 12-year-old. And like, in my mind, you're 12. You don't know any better. But there comes a moment where we're like, you're becoming a young lady. You're navigating this world. I'm here. Your family's here. But at the end of the day, you're doing this alone. You're figuring things out alone because there's going to be a moment where I'm not here. That could be tomorrow. That could be 50 years from now.
True.
And you need to be equipped to be able to deal with this on your own. How do we do that without over-inserting ourselves or the opposite, completely retracting and be like, all right, I'll do it on your own.
Well, it took me 70 years to uninsert myself, to figure it out. Like, shut up. Don't say nothing. Just let it go. Don't show nothing in your face. I can't even show disgust in my face. She'll go, what's that? What's the look? Oh, you're going to do the look.
You just respond with, I just love you. I love you very much. That's what I tell my daughter now.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my goodness. I'm like, I love you. I love you. And that's all I have to say.
But we're both, guys that have daughters, right? That changed my life. I coached all her softball team. She's in the Hall of Fame herself at North Allegheny.
That's
She
awesome.
set every record up there in softball. She had 25 of 25 stolen bases her junior year, right? She's in the Hall of Fame.
That's awesome.
Right? And I got to tell you something, man. That kid's been nothing her whole life. Just a great kid, And now she wants to be, a great parent. I have a grandson that's 9, and I have a granddaughter that's 5. And, I want to fit in. Because there's always that element, Ricky doesn't fit in. Just grew up with it.
You gotta learn the lingo first. The new kids have their own lingo now.
Yeah, well, she's past that lingo stuff.
I mean, your grandkids.
Oh, yes.
That's where you skip the generation and you take the kids, her kids, and then you get in with
Just
her.
got one yesterday. Sus.
Oh.
Suspect.
Yeah,
right?
That's sus.
I'm like, yeah. And I'm like,
You got to tell them. You got to say, hey, Pap's got Riz.
Yeah.
Watch you you're going to blow their
Or
mind.
cred. Or
yeah,
cred.
they're gonna like stop. My daughter.
Is
does
cred
that.
still a thing or no?
It's like now it's Riz and Aura.
Okay.
Like Aura 1000. And my daughter's like, stop. I'm
Is
like,
there-
it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
Is there a dictionary for this shit?
Online. Everything's online now. There's like a urban dictionary for
I'm gonna have to print it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got not to date you, but he's got the printouts and everything's got his book.
Yeah.
Devin. You know Devin.
Yes.
He tracks everything in a notepad.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, you have a phone that does all this for you. He's like, I need my notepad. His boxing fights, his train, it's all in like this black book. I'm like, dude, we're the same age.
Yeah.
Like, why are you? But it's something about.
He must have got that from his dad or his grandpa.
Yeah, it's something about opening that book, writing it
It's
in.
writing for me. So we're both. He's probably ADHD like I am.
We all are. Everyone is nowadays.
Right. And so if I write it, I memorize it.
Yeah,
and it's
because
in there. It's in there.
There's a study showing that a lot of food, and it was a very niche study. Like ADHD, you tend to forget things. Like it's like organized chaos. If you know where everything is because you put it there. Like let's say someone loads your fridge and they put the fruit in the bottom back shelf. You will never eat it because you didn't put it in there. That's not the spot you put it in there, and it goes bad.
And it ruins my day. Like, I go with my wife back and forth. Who moved my thing? And she'll look at me like,
that's not where it belongs. That's where it belongs
that's
for
what
me.
she said. We just had a compromise the other day on I gotta have my shit in front of me. My knife, my pills, my school, my blah. I gotta have it in front of me, right? My book, everything's right there on the counter. She goes, you're ruining my counter. What do you mean I'm ruining
I
your-"
do that too, like right by the door. I have everything that I need for the day. It's right by the door.
And if I don't at nighttime, like today, I had everything sitting on the floor. Most of the stuff sitting on the floor, so when I got to trip over it to get out the door, so I don't forget it.
No, that's a good thing. So that you're in this fight. that changes the trajectory of your life, right?
So I finally make it to 77. So going back just one step, when that had happened, I was getting a divorce and all that stuff was going on. I couldn't buy a job in Pittsburgh, and that put me in the doldrums. And then, of course, you're getting a divorce at 22 years old, 22 years old, and I had a son. When you go through that, you just feel like shit. And I went back to my dad and I said, hey, I had found out that the Nationals were going to be in Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, I had been off for 3 years married, trying, got a job, the whole 9 yards, working night turn. And what I did was I went up and talked to my dad. I wasn't living at home, and I went up and talked to him. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about fighting again. And he said, oh, no. He put his paper down. He said, he was reading the paper, smoking his L&M cigarettes. And he says, he just put the corner of the paper down and looked over top, and he goes, you don't need to fight. You did great. You did really good. And I was like, Dad, I need this.
So you were already fighting, and then you took like a time off.
Yep.
What was the reason to take the time off?
To be married, and I had a son. Okay. I was trying to do
do the thing, yeah.
At 19 years old. And so, yeah, I wanted to be responsible. I want to be like my dad, which was a mistake.
Yeah, he's his own man.
He's his own man, but I didn't know that. He was my only role model,
That's true.
And so I'm like, okay. Oh, I had priests and all that stuff, and they were friends, more like friends, but it wasn't a role model. He was my role model. He was the captain, and I couldn't think of a better person to guide me in that ring, to not let people screw me around either on the paperwork part of it or on, in the ring. Get me through a bad moment in the ring. There's a lot of bad moments. If you have a fight that's really matched equally, a lot of times there's a lot of bad moments for you. If you get caught and you get stung, and they can get you through that. Hang on. They're guiding you. They're your brain above your brain, because they can see it. That's your third eye, and they can see it, and they know you. They know what you're capable of, and he knew what I was capable of. And when we looked at each other, our eyes locked on each other, and he said, "You can win." I knew I could win. I didn't care.
Yeah, you were gonna find.
I come out of body.
Yeah.
He said I could win. I'm him now. Whatever, and that's what fighters are. Not to get off on a tangent, but fighters are a product of a lot of different fighters, a lot of different people. They pick up little nuances, and I like the way he shuffles here. I like the way he throws the right hand, or the double jab, or the overhand right, or the left hook. I like his movements. I took a little from him. That's what I did with my career. A little from him, little from him, little from him. But I could box, but because I was small, I had to burrow my way in. And my dad's biggest thing was hit and don't get hit. Hit and don't get hit. So I learned to hit and not get hit. Maybe because I'm able to form sentences today, it's a tribute to that. Because there's a lot of damaged guys out there. And that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, well, boxing is one of the things, like, very, very concentrated striking. You look at MMA and you see people get knocked out and choked out, and it's like, how are there how's more damage taken in boxing than in MMA when you have these big padded gloves in boxing and it's just very fixed. And I do MMA. When I go box and spar, I am gassed. I'm exhausted. I am miserable.
Holding your hands up like that the whole time.
Yeah, watching Hutch's event, I'm sitting there exhausted. Watching Savage, right? Like, Savage is, he's a pro wrestler. He's dived in MMA and kickboxing. To see him in the boxing ring was a whole different.
He surprised me.
Element. It was a whole different element.
He surprised me. He kept his cool in there. A little bit nervous. He was on his toes the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is understandable.
Because he wants to kick.
Yeah, can't do that. Or like for me, I'm short too. I'm 5'7".
Yeah.
So in MMA, I get away with it because I'll crash in. And then I'm taking you to the ground. That's my goal.
But for the record, I'm 5'5" now, and I think I started at 5'6".
They say the older you get, you kind of get compressed.
I'm compressing.
But that's how I get away with it. In boxing, you can't do that. You have to be very technical, very in tune with what you're doing. Because in MMA, you can get away with being tired because You grapple him up, hold him
We'll
in a
rest
position.
him. We'll rest him for a
Yeah.
little bit. I was just teaching my grandson about doing that when he's wrestling for an NA Tigers, you know. And I said, hey, when you get him on the ground, you just told him to take 3 deep breaths, catch your breath.
Breathe through it.
You'll think of what to do next.
And
It
we
relaxes
see a
you.
lot of that.
And I've been doing that with that boy since he was a kid. When he would lose his shit, I'd stop and say, stop, 3 deep breaths. And no matter how much of a tizzy he was in, he would do the 3 breaths with me. He still does it today. I'll say, stop. Take 3 deep breaths. Breathe with me. And he does it. And then he's calm. Then we can talk. Otherwise, he's like me.
That
I see
pause.
so much in me and him. And I wish somebody would have said, Rick, it's okay. Take 3 deep breaths. We'll work it out. No, it was, you say another word, I'm knocking you out. Or you're getting a belt. Or you're getting a backhand. You know?
Instead of giving me the opportunity to think about my decisions, give me the opportunity. I'm a child. I'm gonna tell that to my mom because every time she'll be like, "Oh," I'm like, "Mom, I'm a grown ass man now. I will, if I want it, I won't. But if I want it, you should do it." I'm just like, okay, I don't want none of that smoke.
I miss that when you talk about your mom. Obviously, she's still alive and
Yeah.
you still deal with her.
Thank God.
But I miss my mom because she was my savior, you know. And I won't get into all that, but she was. But going back to the fights, I found out that the Nationals were in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I knew I could get there. And so I picked a song. You know how you pick a song for your training?
Yeah.
My song, and not the Walking Out song because they
Oh,
picked
you're-
that for you. It was my mantra it was Philadelphia Freedom.
That was
You
what
know?
got you through training.
Because I
camp.
knew I was going to Philadelphia for the championship, state championship, and then from there to the Nationals in Honolulu, Hawaii. I thought I'm never going to get there, and that's what I said to my dad. He said, "Why do you want to do that?" I said, "Because I want to go to Hawaii. I'm never
ticket to
going to
Hawaii.
get there. I'm never going to get there on my own." Anyhow, I go to Philadelphia. 20 of us from Pittsburgh team went up there. 19 of us lost. They railroaded us right out of the place, and it happens. It happens. I just wish it wouldn't happen to me that day. You, it's okay. Me, no.
You'll get over it. Me, I'll never recover.
And here I am, what is it, 42 years later or something like that. You know, I still think of it. But now, because of this Hall of Fame, it made me stop and not think that way anymore. This is the way I was supposed to go. It's all predestined. I believe in God, and I think He's guided me every step of the way. He gave me what I needed, and He gave me stuff that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah, in the journey, and that trust the journey, right? Because given that boxing career, what could have happened? You win, you go to Hawaii, something catastrophic happens.
Well, here it could have been this. Guess who won the 139-pound class that year at the Nationals? Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hitman Hearns from the Kronk Gym.
Yeah, big name.
Right? Big name.
Big name.
But then the other side of me, the ego side of me says, yeah, I'd like to fight him. I think I could have beat him. You know? That's how I was. And when that happened, though, and a lot of things happened, but I chased this kid for 3 rounds. He ran from me, turned his back on me and everything. And Michael Ross was his name. I still remember his name. And I remember at the end, I was helping the referee raise my hand. There's no way on this God's earth that this kid could have got the fight running, turn his back and running. And they said his name. I'm helping the referee raise my hand. They said his name. I looked at him and I thought, what the fuck happened here? You sure? Check them fucking cards again.
You read the name wrong.
No.
You meant to say Steigerwald.
And my trainer did what he did 1,000 times. Held the ropes up, said, let's go. He never argued with them. He might come back later on and say to a judge, how could you see it that way? You know? But he's waving me out. I'm fit to be tied. He just stopped my dream. Because when I stepped into that ring, and the last thing I said to my dad was, I'm bucking him up. And I turned around and I just attacked. And, he turned, the referee with his hand in the air, he turned towards me and he said, I'm sorry. He said he was sorry. He knew he didn't win that fight. He knew that. Anyhow, come home, get over it. The next year comes around and they moved the Golden Gloves from Monzo's, in the Civic Arena. They moved it to CCAC on Northside. So I went back. I hadn't been in the gym that whole year. I was mad. And I hadn't been in the gym. So I go And I go to see the younger kids in my gym. And the commissioner of boxing at the time was Reach Achatoli. And Reach come up to me and said, hey, one of the judges didn't show up. Would you judge? And he liked the way I judged. And then the next time I judged, he said, hey, we need a referee. Bobby Baker, famous fighter in Pittsburgh back in the day. Bobby Baker was retiring because of his knees. He said, would you try it? And I said, no, I like doing this. Sport coat, looking good, you know? And being able to give a fair assessment of your fight.
Yeah, having been feeling robbed, you took it upon yourself to be like, I can't have this happen to someone else. Right.
And what I had to learn real quick was just because I'm a boring fighter, keep moving in. I'm Joe Frazier. I'm little Joe Frazier. And that's the other great thing back then. I got to go to Joe Frazier's gym when I was in Philadelphia that year because his Marvis and his sons were fighting in the Golden Gloves. So we fought against them. And so I got to go to his gym. And it was awesome. He talked to us like he was a good dude, man. And they're playing his music in there, and he can't sing for shit. And they're playing his music in there. He thinks he can sing, right?
It's all that matters, right?
It's all who's going to tell him that stinks?
Who's going to tell him now?
So anyhow, I get that all done, and I do, and he comes back to me, and he says, hey, Rick, he says, come on, try this refereeing out, you know? And I'm like, all right, I'll try it out. Can I still judge too? I don't have to referee all the time. No, you do whatever you want. Okay, good. Be down Western Penitentiary. You know, you got to be there 2 hours early because back then, in the 70s, 78, 79, they had to do a 2-week background check on you. You know, it took about 2 weeks, state police. So I didn't know anybody in there. I'm sure you're familiar being in the, you know, they were careful that I wasn't taking anything in, that I know anybody, any family members, the whole 9 yards, I guess, you know. And I cleared, and anyhow, I go down there, and I'm in there, 2 minutes, and people were yelling, Stag, what's up, my man, ref? A lot of my friends I didn't even know where we're at were in there. I'm like, dude, what happened, man?
What happened
it could have been.
They didn't have a fighting career. That's what happened.
It could have been, right? And so that was a great reunion.
Like an eye-opening moment, too, I'm sure.
It was. I'm doing good. That's all I could hear in the back of my head. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm proud of you, Ricky. I'm doing good. You know? Like, I needed that. My mom did that for me. She goes, you put more pressure on yourself than anybody. You're okay. You're okay.
That 3-second breath. That's what she's doing for you.
Boom. Right? And so I get down there and I do them. I'm like, hey, I like this. I can control this and make a better fight out of it just from my experience fighting. There's a lot of law fights. Hold on, you know, fall down. I remember refereeing a pro fight, and they brought in a bunch of fighters they always try to get them from one area so they don't have to pay the freight from all over the United States, right? And it was Washington, D.C., and they were notorious for lack of a better word, laid on bums, you know? And so anyhow, I'm doing this fight. It was one of our Pittsburgh fighters fighting him. It might even have been Michael Moore. I can't remember. But, you know, this first minute of the first round, he never got hit. He takes a dive. He's laying on the ground like a minute and a half into the fight. He takes a dive, which, you know, I don't know it's a dive then, but I know he didn't get hit. I'm watching it. The guy missed him completely. He's laying on the ground. The timekeeper, I look over timekeeper and I wave him off. He's counting. 1, 2. I said, no. I go over and I said, dude, he never hit you. Get up. And he looks out of one eye, looks up me in one eye. I said, you heard me. He never hit you. Get up. I wiped his gloves off, give him an 8 count. Boom. And then you know, he waited till he got hit for the next time to go down, you know, holding his stomach and his nuts and, you know,
I love
his head. You know.
His foot? Like, how's your foot hurt?
So I loved it. Then, you know, a part of my personality is be the best at what you're doing. So I went over them rules, and the last exec, we got a new one now, Ed Kunkel. He's a great guy, and he's really running this like it should be running, like a business. You know, he's in government, but he's running this like a business because we're our own entity. We pay for ourselves. We don't depend on any state funds. And so he's the guy. He's changing the trajectory of where we're going. We're so busy now. We got ads in the paper for inspectors and whatnot, deputies and inspectors to help work the fights because we have so many fights now. We added one in.
What are the qualifications for that?
For me, for my qualifications, a little bit of fight experience, so you know what it's like to get hit. You know a good punch from a bad punch. The ones that don't do that, I send them to Jack's gym or one of the gyms around the city and get a little sparring in. Train with them a little bit so you know a good punch from a bad punch. Not noise. And a lot of them do that. We have a lot of clinics for the amateurs. So I think for me, it gives me when I'm in that ring with them, it gives me a sense of I got to get these guys through, because there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot when you're, especially the newer ones. This ain't like Paul Spadafora in his 20th fight. Sammy Vasquez is this is kids that are almost windmill swinging, and you're just like, and I would tell them when I gave them the instructions, stay calm. I'll get you through this, and they believed that in me. If the guy was hitting them in the back of the head every time they clinched, I'd say, hey, you do it again, I'm going to take a point. Right? So you try to slow them down a little bit. Some people are so spazzed, they don't even hear you.
It's interesting how overlooked a ref is in a fight.
Honest to God.
Even till this moment, we don't really pay attention to the refs.
Only when he makes a bad call.
Yeah, only when he makes a bad call, but we overlook they're essentially keeping the momentum of the fight going.
And you have 2 lives in your hand.
Yeah.
Honest to God, it's the closest. I was just talking to my boy Boom Boom Mancini the other day. How'd you like to live with that? Right? And he's navigating it. In fact, they're going to do, he was contacted. They want, there's books on Boom Boom Mancini, My Father's Son and all that great stuff. And he travels around and talks at the different fights and different entities, the IBF and that, when they have their weekends and all that stuff, or their conventions. But it really took him 20-some years to find a place in his body for that, in his brain, in his heart. And until he went back to Korea to talk to Duk Kim's son, who just graduated college. And the son relieved him. I don't want to tell a story, but the son relieved him. He said, that could have been you. Just happened to be my dad. Wasn't his day. And so Boom Boom's now able to talk about it. He couldn't for the longest time. He told Sports Illustrated, don't ask me again. Like 20 years ago.
Yeah, you're talking about someone's life.
So here I am. I got your life, especially when you see somebody get tagged. There's that moment.
You just want to stop it.
You're left or right. But if you know the fighter, that's where I did my homework. Hence, all the paperwork. I did my homework on both fighters. I knew their potential. I watched videos of them if they on YouTube and whatnot, if I could, so that I would know how much can they take, how much can they come back from, and that helped me determine in that fight. You let world champions go, and I've done some championship fights. You let them go a little bit more because they can come back from a knockdown. They can come back from, getting tagged and walking sideways, their head going one way and their body going another. But it's a fine line. And thank goodness nobody died on my watch.
There's a lot that goes into refereeing that I think a lot of people, especially fighters don't like. No. Who's the first person they argue with?
Yep.
The ref.
He's hitting me low. He's hitting me low. Let me handle that.
Yeah, that's my job.
Keep fighting.
That's my job.
You hit him in the balls again, I'm going to take a point. I had to take a point off Spadafora. I don't know if you read about that, but I took a point off him in a world championship fight.
Was it the 99 or 2000?
Billy Irwin fight.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I knew Billy Irwin, right? I watched him. It took him 4 years. He's from Canada. It took him 4 years to get back in the United States to fight. Mike Akery had his contract. And through some channels, he must have done something up there that he wasn't allowed to travel to the United States. So when I seen him 4 years earlier, he fought on the undercard, a Michael Moore fight, and Proudfoot and a couple other guys here at the Civic Arena. I said, boy, I didn't referee him. No, I did. And I said, boy, can this kid fight for a little white kid? He had all the tools. Because I related to him. He was my height and my build, and he was me. In, right? So anyhow, and the best part of the whole story, one of the best parts, is that his trainers were pipe fitters out of Canada. So we were out of the same international. Did not say a word to them until after the fight. I said, I'm a steam fitter out of 449 Pittsburgh. They go, what? Yeah, we're out of Canada. We're out of, because we switched off over the years. Their money pay was a little different than ours, So not many of us went up there, but they came down here a lot.
That's interesting. It's a small world. It's a small world, especially in that sense. It's like the underdog story. You get a lot of these blue collar workers who their outlet is fighting or boxing. And like you see something in those, especially I'm not to be biased, but like the underdog fighters out of Pittsburgh, and they go travel to this big gym to go fight, or this big area. They're in like foreign land.
You know what I always say? The underdog. No, everybody loves the underdog.
Yeah.
I'd rather be the underdog. Let me come out of the loser's bracket.
Let me come out. Let me prove myself.
Yeah.
Because when you win, it tastes so much better than you're expected to win. You have nothing to lose. You have all the belts. You have all the records. You have the trainers, the coaches. Yeah, so-and-so is going to win by knockout, or so-and-so is going to win by decision easily. Yeah. Like that's cool. That's awesome. That says a lot about what you've done. But
like Devin, right? Here he is fighting his 5th fight, and he's fighting for a title. But we got too many titles already. That's one thing that I want to talk about. There's way too many fighters. And there's a big movement now with Dana White. And it's Trujillo or something like that. He's a Saudi Arabian guy.
Yeah, another Saudi. They're starting a boxing promotion.
Okay. So the only thing that scares me about that, we need that. It's boxing so all over the place, unifying the rules and all that stuff, because there is, Association of Boxing Commissioners that I'm involved with, and that's the commissioners from all over the state that make decisions on, rules and different things like that, And we've been trying for years to get every state to follow us, but you got states that don't have commissions, like Montana and, places like that, Missouri and different places like that don't have. I think Missouri does, but it's flimsy, West Virginia. Since I've been in office, which is 2 terms, and even before that, they've been through 4 or 5 commissions where the governor stepped in and fired everybody because of mismatches of fights, people getting messed up and whatnot, And I know them guys try. I know a lot of them guys, they try, but somehow it just doesn't work down there. But in PA, one thing is for sure, when you come to PA to fight, we're going by the rules. And we're going to protect you.
Yeah, you guys are very serious. I'll sit in on the rule meetings and stuff. I get a little backstage pass having the Relentless Project and stuff. I get to interview the fighters and stuff. And you guys do run a tight ship. And even to the point, I forget who it was. He's like, if you are not associated with a fighter, if you don't have a tag, you're out. I don't have my tag on. Like, it's on the table. Yeah. He looks at me. He goes, no, you're good. And I'm like, all right, I was making. I'll leave if
that was probably Pat. He's got a big bark.
Yeah, I was like, I'll leave if I have to. He's like, no, you're good. We know who you are. I was like, I'll put my tag on. I don't want to be confused.
That was probably Pat. Yeah.
But it goes to show you the professionalism in the fighting that's been happening. Even in the couple years I've been involved, I've seen it evolve. Like the matches are becoming more intense, more exciting. You're not getting someone just going in and cleaning house. You're getting movement in the ring. You're getting movement in the cage, and I think that's on the spectacle side. That's what we want to see. We want to see good fights. We want to see exciting matches, and then also being on the other end, where a lot of my friends are these fighters, want to make sure they're safe. Want to make sure they're being pushed. Right, like you're not just feeding some guy all the time. Like it's become very professional. It's become very exciting, and like now with Turf Wars, we have all these new boxing promotions coming up. The sport is exciting.
And bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah,
we just passed this a few months ago. David Feldman is running that bare knuckle fighting league. Excuse me, and he's from Philadelphia.
The PA one's going to be in Philly, right? Or
we already had it. It was they brought me to it. So being a commissioner, I'm ringside. I love this job. I'm there. I'm with Conor McGregor. I'm with Mario Lopez. I'm with all the stars now. When I pulled up at the Wells Fargo Center where they had it in Philadelphia, I took a picture of it. I couldn't believe a kid from Northside not only has his meetings with the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania and all his people, you know, all the deputies and everybody, it trickles down. But I'm ringside for this fight. This is history. You know, we made history here by allowing it to happen. And how did I get here? How am I lucky enough? Like, I always feel this way. If I was to write my own story when I was a kid, I never would have wrote it this good. I never would have imagined. You know, the best thing probably I could have come up with was, you know, I retired as a steam fitter and I had a great life. You know? No, now I add this to it. I had 2 careers, you know, going on at the same time. And it kind of fed off each other, you know. In construction, you know, I ran a lot of jobs. I was a welder on the nuclear plants, you know, and dealing with people. And that's what you have to do in the fight game, especially in my position now. You know, and the damage, we talked about the damage of the fighters. I started a concussion program for all these young amateurs. And I've done over 800 young kids with make sure that they have, just like in the Whippeals, and I didn't know why we don't have this, but everybody, you know, has to have a baseline test on your brain before you can participate in any Whippeal sports here in Pennsylvania. And I'm trying right now through the channels of going through centers and whatnot to get that written into law so that every kid, and that will follow you for life. So no matter what happens, if you use it from fighting or you got in a car wreck or whatever, they don't know where your brain waves were. They can guess, they can do an average over 15-year-olds that are active and blah, 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 but it's not, everybody's
it's not yours.
different.
Yeah, it's not yours.
It's not yours. So this is like a tag that goes with them. And, but like everything else, I started that like when I first got in, I got in office in 2015, appointed by Governor Wolf. And then in 2016, I started that. And I had AHN involved, and they came there, Dr. Alcala, and he brought all his people in, and we did it at the weigh-ins. Where else you going to catch all the fighters at, right? We did it at the weigh-ins, and it worked out good. At least 6 people have come back to me over the years and said, hey, I got my bell rung. Can I get that test again and see where I'm at?
That's awesome.
And it's helped out.
That's awesome, especially with TBI being a huge factor in
Black
a lot
matter.
of things now. Yeah.
And they're supposedly, I don't know if you heard this, but they're real close to doing it without having to cut your skull open. You being dead, you know, that would mean to find the black matter. You know, the scientists are just about, they're at the cutting edge of being able to detect it while you're still alive.
How would that play in as your role? Like how using those tests, utilizing it, how is that something that you plan to push the sport of boxing forward or fighting in general?
So we have, you know, you talked about gloves before, wearing gloves and not wearing gloves and all that stuff. There's a bunch of theories about that, you know, that they went through, you know, helmets, no helmets in the amateurs. You know, they've talked about that for years. It's been kicked around with USA Boxing, Colorado Springs and whatnot, and all the entities, Golden Gloves and that. And there was one time there was a theory that you know, if you got a glove on, you're going to punch harder because you know you got a glove on, your hand's protected. If your hands aren't protected, it's the same theory they brought up with bare knuckle fighting. You're not going to punch as hard. Bullshit.
Yeah, you're swinging. Yeah.
4 guys have broken hands from them fights that we had out there. In fact, one of the rules that we implemented with bare knuckle fighting when we sat down with them, because when it first came out, like 5 or 6 years ago, when they first talked to us about it, they came in and talked to the whole commission. They had their shit together, but not all the way. And that's what we told them. Come back when you got the shit together. Here's what we'd like to see. And we wanted more doctors. We wanted suture doctors in the back. So now instead of 2 doctors, you got 6. Right? Rotating. It's a good damn thing we had them. Them doctors were busy. My doctor from Erie, Joe Leone. You know Dr. Leone?
I've heard.
Oh, no, he's the best. I've been with him for 30 years. Since I've been going up there, he's been doing the fights. He knows his shit.
It's a small world, man.
So I brought him on the commission, right? And I brought another one in, Eric Bond. He's from up in Indiana, PA, you know? And he's an orthopedic guy. And anyhow, between the 2 of them, they told me they did more work on one guy. The first fight of the night, they did more work on him in the back than he's done in 3 months in his office on anybody or everybody together. He had a broken nose. He had a spin in his nose. He had a straightened out. He had cut over the right eye, cut over the left eye. He got butted in the top of the head. He was bleeding down the center, and his tooth went through his chin. And there was a big hole because I seen it. And he passed him up. They fixed his nose. They sewed him up, blah, 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 blah.
How often do you get pushback for trying to implement things that are for the safety of the fighters?
Well, that's the best part. We have, I know where you're going with that, and I meant to say this before. So we have a medical board, and them doctors are on the medical board. I got doctors on the medical board. Ed's got doctors on the medical board. And everything we do, we run by them. If they weren't on board for this to happen, we would not have voted for it. We took a poll of the doctors, and I think it was 3-2 about doing this. I think, you know, that was the numbers about doing this, you know. And if they would have said, you know, if it would have been the other way to not do it, we would have just, okay, we're going to move on. But we kind of waited to see what California was going to do, and Texas, and some of the big, you know, the big five, and we're a part of that. We waited to see what they were going to do. And once California and Texas opened it up, we were pretty much, okay, let's give it a try. And this is what we told them, because I was in the meeting, under our rules. You know, you're under our commission, here's what we want. And David was, yep. You know, and Conor McGregor is a part of it. In fact, he thanked me at them fights, because you see my badge on, which is another moment in my life, right? He goes, man, thanks a lot. He shook hands for having us here in Pennsylvania, you know, Commissioner, blah, 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 blah. And I had my phone on, right? And I'm like a seeker. Everybody wanted his picture with Conor. And he's like, he got hit with 440. He's bouncing everywhere, man. He's over here, he's over there. I thought, I ain't going to be able to get a picture with him, you know? He comes over and he goes, hey, thanks a lot, man. He just looked at my badge. He said, thanks a lot. He said, he grabs my phone out of my hand. He goes, this is how we do it, and took a selfie of both of us.
You're like, yeah.
He even grabbed another guy who had nothing to do with me and pulled him in. He just went like this. I had to X him out, right? You know, but so it looked like just me and Conor, right?
Yeah, I respect it.
Same with Lopez. When I talked to Lopez, he's eating a sloppy pizza, him and his dad. It was like the biggest, you know, Philly pizza.
Yeah,
they're this big.
Big pies.
Who brings you a pizza and doesn't bring you napkins? They're ringside. His dimples are going to start crying, right? They're gonna feel you won't even know he had dimples. You have sauce in them, and I just happen to have napkins in front of me because I spit, you know, in case I gotta get rid of it quick. Here comes somebody, whoop, the whole thing comes out of the napkin. I'm in, right? I'll shake hands with you. Well, anyhow, I turned around. He was right behind me, him and his dad, and I said, "Here you go." He goes, "Oh, man, thanks a lot." It opened the door. He started talking to me, right? He says, "Hey, where are you from? You Pennsylvania?" Yeah. I said, "I'm from Pittsburgh." He goes, "Oh, my wife's from Pittsburgh." I said, "Where at?" He said, "West Midland." I said, "Oh, yeah, I know. Now I'm friends with his wife on Instagram." Right?
That's network makes the net worth, they say.
Yeah.
That's what I love about these fights. Even being, you know, at Turf Wars, you know, ran into a few other people that I haven't seen in a while. Greg was on the show too. Shout out Greg.
Did you see what I had to write someone when he posted that picture? I had to write, yeah, I hire him to stretch my T-shirts out. I knew that would get him. He hit me with a love right off the bat.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, he's quick too. So if you dish it out, you're gonna get it back.
Yeah.
I just want to take a second to shout out a few companies who believed in me. You know, these were one of our first official sponsors, so huge shout out. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Carbo Jewelers, established in 1997 on the values of honesty and integrity. Whether you're searching for the perfect piece, need expert repair services, visit Carbo Jewelers in Newark's Ironbound District, where your jewelry is always in safe hands. This episode is also brought to you by Continental Jewelers, proudly serving Hudson County, New Jersey since 1964. Whether you're seeking a timeless piece or need expert repairs, they've got you covered. Visit Continental Jewelers, your trusted source for all things jewelry. You can find them on Instagram at Carbo Jewelers or online at carbojewelers.com. Lastly, big shout out to Carbo Trading. Besides coins, precious metals, and jewelry, if it could be traded and collected, he's probably got it. They can be found on Instagram at carbo.trading. You can find all of our sponsors out online on our sponsor page at therelentlessproject.com. Yeah, it's just that's a cool moment. That's one of those. I was going to ask you, like, what are some memorable moments as a referee? But we'll just transition into both. Like in this career, like what are some things that you sit back and you're like, wow, that really happened? It's almost like a movie.
My first one, when we brought my mom and dad, the first world championship fight I did with Spadafora with Cornette. You know, I had been with Paul. I sparred Paul 3 weeks before he fought for the title down in West Virginia. We were all out at the PAA in Pittsburgh, the athletic club, real ritzy joint. And every year, like Duquesne Light and Equitable Gas and all them would put on fights. And they'd have it there because the commissioner of boxing back then, and my buddy, and a great guy, Andy Kid DePaul, whose job, you know, when he passed, I was lucky enough to get his job to carry on what he did in the, you know, in our industry. But he sold for Jacqueline's. And so he knew every bar and every nightclub and he sold to them. And he put them fights on. So we get there and we're all sitting at a table. Nadine's there, Paul's there, Paul's brother's there. And Andy's walking around like a chicken with his head cut off. I said, Andy, what's the matter? He said, oh, Spatafor was supposed to put on a sparring match. He said, and he said his opponent didn't show up. And I said, oh. And he said, we called his brother Harry, who was a great fighter himself, and Harry couldn't make it. So I looked up at him and I said, I'll spar him. No, I already refereed 4 amateur fights. I said, I'll spar him. He said, you will? I said, yeah. He said, he runs over to the maitre d'. I said, if the money's right, if the money's right, I will. He said, how much you want? I just threw a number out. He said, I'll be right back. He came back with the cash from the guy, the main guy.
Now I got to get to work.
I called my wife. I'm 44 years old.
You didn't run it by her first?
No.
Oh.
She was a little bit mad about that. She said, are you out of your mind?
Not yet.
She said,
maybe after this.
You are 44, he's 22. I said, Joe, they paid me.
We're going to a good dinner after this.
There's no way out. I took the money. So anyhow, I go in because I don't have my stuff with me. I usually have my gym bag. I took my motorcycle that night because it was a beautiful night out, right? They get a big tent set up, $100 a plate, steaks, cooking them right on the grill, the whole 9 yards, right? I don't have my stuff. The maitre d' says, come on downstairs. It's an athletic club. It's a big gym. It's got a swimming pool, everything. I picked out all my shit so it would match, right? I'm walking to the ring by myself into the tent. They had a little tent there. And there was a dark spot in that tent, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Next thing you know, a great fighter that fought back in the day, his name was Ed Cutie Pie Chambers. His son, young Eddie, was fighting. He just got done. He's walking out. He got the bucket. I said, Cutie Pie, you work my corner? He turned right around. He said, sure. We walked up to the ring. I looked at him. I climbed through the ropes. He held the ropes. I said, I'm crazy, right? He goes, yeah. He said, but you can fight.
Living the glory days. You gotta let people know that at any moment.
Right? Any moment. I walked up in that ring. Now, the best I had done that I hadn't sparred in years. The best I had done, I still hit the bag every day, and I work out and jump rope and whatnot, you know. So I was in decent shape. And so we had talked beforehand with Tommy and Kello, his guy, you know, and we had talked, just take it easy. It was almost reminding me of like, you know, it was kind of staged, kind of in a way, like Rocky and Thunder Lips. Remember when he fought the Ultimate Male? Thunder Lips, the Ultimate Male, right? Sure. So I was kind of like jabbing him like that in the stomach, like, is that okay, right? He tries to take my head off. But he ended up hitting me with, of all things, and I fought a lot of lefties, I forgot he was a lefty. And I went right into an uppercut, and he hit me right in the solar plex the first 10 seconds and knocked all the wind out of me. I couldn't get a grasp of air, right? And I'm like, oh, shit. What am I going to do? And I said, come on, you can get through this. You know how to do this. You know how to do this. And I'm breathing like it.
That's the worst.
Because when whatever I let out, I'm not getting it all back in. So it was a little, and I'm dancing, I'm moving, I'm making him miss me, you know, as I'm doing this. And when I got back to the corner, I made it through that round, I got back to the corner. Cutie Pie says to me, you all right? I'm like, yeah, he hit me right in the solar plex. Did you see it? He goes, yeah. He goes, you all right breathing now? You know how that spasms.
Yeah, you can't control it.
So he's rubbing it for me. There was no stool. I'm standing. He's rubbing it. Give me the water, blah, blah, blah. We go back in. He tries to do it again. He tries to hurt me. I can tell there's malice. So I said, oh, yeah? I feinted that left hook again, hit him with an overhand right, and knocked him back into the ropes. Tommy and Kello jumps up on the apron. Ho, ho, ho. He's going, whoa, whoa, ho. What are we doing here?
Paying it back.
I said, exactly.
Paying it forward.
I said, tell him. Tell him. He got this going like that. And then we got back together a moment, and then we started working a little bit. I went 4 2-minute rounds with him. And a month later, he wins the title. I took my dad, who didn't tell me that he had cataract surgery. You know, I ain't buying ringside. So we're back a few rows. And I said, what's wrong with your eyes? He's blinking and rubbing them. He goes, oh, I had cataract surgery yesterday. I said, you didn't tell me that. I walk up to Mike Akery, it's his show, and I say, hey, Mike, my dad just got, cataract surgery. He said, sit right here. That was all I had to say to him. Sit right here. There was 2 seats ringside. I go up and I get him. My dad always embarrassed my dad. No, I'm not going up there. I said, we're ringside. When was the last time you were ringside? He said, 1953, without blinking, Hickey Park. He
remembered it.
He remembered it. I said, well, guess what? It's 99, and we're ringside. And it was so good to be with him there at that. And he knew I had sparred him, I wish my dad could have said more to me about, honestly, when I think back, I was always trying to get him to say, dude, you did a good job. And it wasn't in him. For me, his affection was a smack on the back of the head, and then reach down and grab my trap and just go, yeah.
That means the world, though.
Right? But I wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear it.
And it goes to show you, like, we're all children inside. It doesn't matter how old you are.
True.
Because, like, even now, I'm doing this. Like, my mom doesn't speak English, but she'll watch my episodes, and she'll text me how proud she is. Or when I'm up there, she's like, oh, I saw this one with da-da-da. And I'm like, you don't have a clue of what we talked about. But the fact that she's, like, taking the time out of her day to show her support and, like, means the world to me, Like, I have that. And I understand there's other people who don't.
She's telling everybody, all her friends.
Yeah.
In Spanish.
And it's like, none of them know what's going on.
That's my son. Look at his emblem.
And like I tell her, and I'm like, Mom, like, I do this in my own little. You have an office, you have a studio. I'm like, yeah, but it's in a brewery, like it's not mine.
Oh, you're always downplaying it. I know.
And like we find ourselves.
It's in
doing
a brewery,
that.
probably one of the best breweries and longest breweries that's left in Pittsburgh.
And you said that coming in, you're like, dude, I grew up right around.
I grew right here.
It's like it's crazy.
Listen to me, dude. Right down the street was an after hours club. True story. And I'm all my boys from California Avenue. And we go there, and we were with some real, like we were hoodlums. We were with criminals from the north side, right? And these guys honestly have killed people. And people that hear this are going to know, the ones that know me, they're going to know who I'm talking about. These were criminal guys that did time and all this other shit. And we walk in this club like we own it, right? We're from the north side. We doing our club, right? And anyhow, this guy, he keeps going on the phone. And this was back in the days of narcs and everything, early 70s, and narcs and shit infiltrating and all that shit. And so this guy keeps going to the phone. This one guy said, hey, he was shooting pool. He said, that guy goes to the phone again, which was right by the pool table. I'm taking him out. He's thinking he's making calls. You got to get down there. The dope's here. They're selling right here, right now. Come, right? Didn't that guy go back to that payphone? He got a cue ball right in the middle of his forehead. He got knocked out, and this place erupted. It was the one, I've been in many of them, but this was one of the best brawls I've ever been in because I was on the outskirts with my buddy Danny Pife.
You find yourself trying to referee it?
No, I was swinging. This was broke out. Pool sticks were being broken. Balls were being thrown. Bottles. We wrecked the place. We left them laying everywhere, right? We walk out the door and we're like laughing. This is like, the sun's just coming up. Right, and we're walking down the street, Venial Street, right, and we're going down toward the Spring Garden, and we're in the middle of the street. There's a gang of us, and here comes the cops. We're like, oh shit! They didn't say a word to us. They went right inside. We're like, run!
Yeah, might as well.
We didn't see anything.
This is our 3-second breath. Go.
We didn't see anything. And we ran, man, and we got away with it, you know? That was only one big brawl I was in.
Allegedly. It's
Yeah.
all alleged.
It's all hearsay.
Statute of limitations.
It's all. It's there. You go. We're lawyers too.
Yeah.
We're jungle lawyers.
Yeah, we
too.
have to be. No, that's awesome. I like stories like that.
Yeah, but we lucked out with that one there.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. I love the story.
Yeah.
I can't talk about my stuff because my work will be like, hold on.
Yeah.
Did
What?
we disclose this?
Wait.
Kind of.
What?
Kind of. I kind of told you the stuff I used to do. No, but I just love that, like, that grit that transitions into fighting, because then you become, matured and cultured, and like you're looking at this dude fighting in a ring and you have no clue the demons he's fighting with, or like what he's going through.
We all have.
taking
Every
it out.
fighter has them, right?
Yeah.
And I used to have to talk Spatafor off the ledge every fight. I'd be refereeing world championship fights with him. And we go, they used to make a bigger deal out of the weigh-ins. It'd be the night before, and it'd be in a hotel, and it'd be press, and especially when Paul was fighting, And I'd see him sitting in a corner, bobbing and weaving, nervous, bobbing and weaving, bobbing and weaving. I'd go, hey, Paul, you all right? And he'd say, hey, you think I can beat this guy?
That's like the worst question, man.
Especially to me.
Yeah.
I said, Paul, you in shape? And he'd say, yep. I'd say, skills, brother, skills. And I'd walk away, right? Loaded question. I can't answer that question. Was I for Paul all the time? Yes. But I told him, and everybody else knows me, my reputation is whoever wins, wins. But I'm gonna be fair and honest. Kind of like Mills Lane.
And that's a big respect thing too. Because, yeah, I'm for you. But at the end of the day, like I get put in this position a lot too, right? I have to interview the winners of each fight.
Yep.
A lot of my friends are going into this ring, into this cage.
Yep.
But I don't get to, hey, man, I'll cheer you up as soon as that fight's over. This guy won. Hey, bro, congrats.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's another hat.
Yeah, it's a different hat.
So when I'm in that ring, man, and honest to God, I do it for the amateurs the same way I do it for the pros. Respect. You step through them ropes.
Not a lot of people do.
We're brothers.
Yeah.
We're brothers. If you act up, now I've had, up in Erie not long ago, this one MMA girl lost her shit, right? They have the boxing up there, Ernie Bazzero, and then we went right over to the thing. This was the first fight. I knew something was wrong with this girl when we went in. She lost her shit. She even hit one of my officials. I walked up in that ring and I said, I'm going to tell you right now, you say another word, you will not fight in Pennsylvania ever. Ever. She was foul-mouthing and calling names. She fought this girl, and a girl from up there, and she was a nice little fighter, quiet, blonde-haired girl. And next thing you know, that girl took her right down, arm-barred her, boom, tapped out in the first minute of the round. Well, that girl's still on her back. She was laying there, she had her like that. She runs over and starts punching her when she's laying on her back after the fight's over.
Yeah, you had your chance. You had your chance.
And we have this really good, Caitlin, she's really good, for our commission, and she's one of the deputies, and she was in that ring, and the girl's flailing at everybody, and she got hit in the face. She didn't lose her cool. She could have lost her cool and taken her down. She didn't. She just calmed the situation down. That's when I come in. You just hit one of my, deputies, you're gone. I had to call cops to get her either. Then her sister, Anthony Bazzero, was there because he fought, and he got engaged to Anita.
Yeah,
his
it was
girlfriend.
at that time.
Right? Yes. And Anita's dressed to the nines. That cute little thing. I love her, right? And she's dressed to the nines. She used to work up in Wexford for Dr. Thomas.
She would come
Burnett?
this way? Or she was from this
She
way?
worked, no, she's from here. She got a job down there. She worked for Burnett, that Regeneration
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
that's a good office too, man.
He's my man. Tom's my man.
That's a good office.
Nancy
I've been
and Tom.
looking into them for some knee stuff.
No, listen to me do it. He's the best at that. He's the best. And he was a veteran too. He was in 2
that's what I
tours in
heard.
Afghanistan. He was a medic over there, and some of the stuff that he's been through, and for where he's at today, He's doing good. But yeah, Anita worked there. And so here she is, all dressed to the nines because she got engaged, which she didn't know about, but she always dressed to the nines.
Especially in the fights,
right?
You saw me at Turf Wars, right?
I
had to compete
you
with
was bad.
Savage.
You was bad, man.
Had the pants and everything.
Yeah. At first, I did a double take because Greg had already taken his sport jacket off. Because he seen your muscles, he was like, no.
He's got to show his.
He's got to show his. You know, Greg, right? What's that? What's that, right? So, so the sister is in the stands. She's bigger than this girl. This girl was 106 pounds. You would have thought she was like 235, the way she was, carrying on and acting there. The sister comes up because Edna was telling her girlfriend what had happened in the ring. She was explaining to her. She said, you shut the fuck up about my sister. That fucking skinny little thing stood up and said, who the fuck are you talking to? I had to go back and get him.
Sanction another fight.
I had to go back and get in the middle of them. I tried to talk to the girl when she was unreceptive to what I was trying to hip to her. I called the other cops. She's gone out in the parking lot. That one there, take her out the back way. Take her out the garage door. She don't deserve to walk out this way. And they did. And they did with her sister this way, right? And so, in this job, there's a lot of different things that happen. You know that.
And it's tough because you're in a position where you have to remain neutral, because it could be someone you're close to acting this way, and you have to be the same way.
And luckily, because of the respect part, I think, and knowing that I'm a fighter, I can talk to most people at that level, the fighter level. I won, or this guy's messing with me, or whatever it is, shit talk in the ring, whatever it is, I'm on their level with that. But you can't act like this here.
Well, and that goes, there's a line, right? Like we're fighting,
yeah,
right? Doesn't mean you get to fight whenever you want, right? Yeah. There has to be some sort of control and culture to this, because you're getting in the ring you're getting paid to put on a spectacle for people.
That's right.
Now
entertainment.
Now you're acting this way. This isn't cool anymore.
Well, it turns out she was high on some kind of drugs. I got the word afterwards, like she was on something. She thought she needed it to get through the fight, whatever, And at that level, we don't drug test them.
Yeah, because, like...
What are you going to do? You know how expensive that is? Not that we wouldn't do that, but it's not necessary.
For amateur level, you're figuring out your fight game. You're figuring out... And that's what I tell a lot of the fighters now, like, in the amateur level, figure out your cuts. Figure out your training camp. Figure out what's working for you.
Yep.
Stay in this. Everyone wants to become pro and then go to... It's like you're skipping all the necessary steps.
Again, going back to Devin, right? Don't get me wrong. He's a great fighter. He's going to be a great fighter. You understand? But he found out real early in his pro career where his vulnerabilities are at. Okay? And so I know him. He's working on it. He's probably overworking it. Knowing him, but, he was doing too much. He wasn't giving himself any rest time. So was he ready for that fight? Yes and no. Yes and no. Because I think, he was a little bit overtrained. He came in so lean for that fight.
Yeah.
I think he weighed less than he ever weighed before.
It was a big cut for him. But that goes to, and that's how nuanced this fight thing is. Like, people see this on TV, right? And they're like, oh, two people going in there and swinging away.
It's so deep.
It's so methodical, right? Like I train out of Stout. So I got Mike, I got Will, to see how they approach coaching and cornering. And then, I'm privy to, I get invited to all the gyms and they welcome me in. And I love this because I get to see different fighters, different coaches, different styles, and to see how everyone approaches it. It's so nuanced. It's very articulate.
That's why I go to all the gyms and watch them spar. I want to see what kids with who's training, what are they teaching them, what's going on. Not that I interject all the time, but when I get a chance, usually I get a chance with the fighters, I'll say, hey, I'll give them my 2 cents, brief and quick, keep that right hand up. Keep that right hand up. You're vulnerable there. Keep that right hand up. Or if they need confidence, I'll give them confidence. When I walked into Billy's thing, he was ready. He was ready. He was ready yesterday, for that fight.
He was ready in here. He's talking to me. I see his eyes going. I'm like, hey, we're on a podcast right now. I feel it. I feel it. Like he's the way, like he's the
He was
piercing eyes.
vibrating.
Yeah. And I like, you love to see it. You love
Another
to see
guy's
it.
going to be professional. In fact, he came to me about his next fight in July, I think 12th at the River Hans Stadium over there on Southside. And of all things, we had 3 fights that night in Pennsylvania. So, like you said, I said to you before, we're, as far as deputies and whatnot, people to run the fights, we're going to be light on that night. But you know what? He's up and coming. He does things right, and we made room for him. So he's going to get his date that he wanted, And, of course, with the River Hans playing, there's only so many dates you can, we don't want to screw him up. But he's a great kid. I refereed a lot of his fights. And one thing I knew, he'd come to fight. There was going to be no bullshit. There's going to be no, he hit me in the balls.
That's
Take
a pet
points
peeve.
off him.
That's a pet peeve of mine.
Right?
Where you're like it didn't even hit him. And you're like, dude, I get what you're doing. You're tired.
Or B, you can hit that cup with a baseball bat and it wouldn't touch your nuts. Now, the worst part is when you get hit in the back of it, right? It's like you bend over and your kid smacks you in the nuts, right? The back of your nuts. You're like, the worst pain, right? Puts you right down.
You're dropping
10
immediately.
count. You're there for the whole 10. You're not getting back up, right? I remember my daughter did it to me growing up. Like, I just happened to bend over at the same time she was trying to punch me in the ass, and she hit me in the nuts, the back of the nuts. I'm like,
I'd fight you, but I can't.
oh, honey, hold on a second.
How have you seen, being involved in the fight game for so long, how have you seen it evolve over time, and where do you see it going?
So we got all these other entities we talked about before, Dana White being involved and, all this other stuff's going on. We got bare knuckle fighting. We got the teams things coming to Pittsburgh, the league, combat league.
Yeah.
So they're going to be here. That's going to be on Sundays. Now that's a big tournament. From what my understanding is, there's going to be, you need, at least 2 doctors, because now you got like 40 some fighters, for weigh-ins and whatnot, So that's the way I'm understanding it, So now we got to do that. They're going to be doing that on Sundays, and here's why I see it. Hopefully, we can get qualified people, and I'm hoping. And I've asked 9 million people that I know, and I'm asking you personally here on.
I'll do it.
We need people that can be fair and honest and neutral, because everybody we know is in a fight game, and everybody we know has a favorite, or 2 or 3, or a gym. You understand? So to go there and do that and risk going into that gym on Monday and they're like, what the fuck did you vote for him for? You see what I'm saying? Like
I feel if you have the backing, right? Like you have, I call it the walk. You've fought. You've won. You've lost. You've been on both ends of that decision.
Yep.
Like even if you haven't fought, you train, you're involved in this, in the fight game. You know what it's like to get hit. You know what it's like to hit. You know what it's like to be in that moment where your life is just closing, your eyes are closing, and it's that fight or flight moment. Do you quit? Do you go? Do you just allow to happen what happen? Like you need to have experienced that. If people resonate with a resume, right? So if you have that backing, your decision, it doesn't have to be light. Maybe they come up to you like, hey, what was that about? And you have to stand on business. This is why I voted this way.
Getting back to
Boom.
Billy Irwin fight, just exactly what you're saying. I never finished that. So Paul's beating him handily. This ain't the same player that was here 4 years ago. That I thought, man, I almost was like, that's how I'd like to fight, Billy Irwin style, And when I refereed him, like he reminds me of me, blah, blah, blah. Different guy when he comes to his battle for is beating me handily, jabbing him. He can't do nothing with his jab. Paul's all over the place. Paul's left, right, up, down, up, and he didn't know what to do with him. He didn't have the go like he did 4 years ago. And I was like, uh-oh. Meanwhile, before the fight, when I'm home studying my rules, I'm thinking, oh, shit. I'm going to be the guy that referees Paul's battle for him when he loses the title. You know what that title meant to Pittsburgh and the boxing world at that time? I got to give this kid credit. He put us back on the map. We hadn't been on the map since probably the 50s, and he put us back on the map. Paul Spatafora from Pittsburgh. So as it turns out, I went over in his corner. I put my hand over the microphone, HBO. I told him and Tommy and Kello, if you hit him in the balls again, I'm taking a point. I already gave you a hard warning. Don't make me take a point off you. What's the first fucking thing he did when he walked out? Stepped right in and hit him in the balls. Stopped the fight. And Billy Arnold was glad to get the break, but it wasn't the balls. I turned around. I usually grab the fighter by the hand, and I turn him to each judge and say, 1 point, low blow, 1 point, low blow. He pulls away from me. I reached over a little bit further and grabbed his arm. I said, you do that again, I'm taking 2 points off you. You need to know I'm in charge here. I don't care who you are. You know what that cost me? Doing his next world championship fight. He didn't want me on his fight. And you know what? Mike Akery said to me in the ring after that happened, he turned to me and he said, that was a good call. You taking that point off of him. That's all I needed.
It's having that backing.
Mike Akery was the pinnacle of of promoters around here. And he got some of his chops from Don King. He took it from Al Baum and all these big name guys, Hearns, all these guys and that. He took it from them. A lot of people didn't like Mike. He was frugal. He brought his sister in to deal with the money part of it, so he didn't have to deal with it. And she was a pit bull. A pit bull. I was afraid to go get my check off her. I'm like, hey, can you go get our checks? To the other referee. Hey, grab my check while you're over there, right? But you had to sign for it, so I had to go and deal with her. Not say, hey, Marie, how you doing? Right?
You look great. Is that a check in your hand? No. But yeah, you have to have that backing because when you make that decision, it's going to be respected. It may not be, and that's more of like being a leader, right? Like not a boss, but a leader.
Yeah.
You have influence in your circle. And if you can do that, like I said, they don't have to agree with the decision, but they're going to be like, okay, I don't agree with it, but if that's how it was called, that's how it was called.
Spatafore is fighting over at the stadium in a tent, in another championship fight. But he's starting to come down. That's why it's in a tent outside in the middle of the winter. And my dad and my brother come, right? And Paul's filing again. He was probably, I have to say, Paul's like Mike Tyson. He watched all them old movies of Fritzy Zivik and all his Willie Pep and all these guys that were notorious for fouling. Fritzy Zivik will poke you in the eye with his thumb and step on your foot and then hit you. The elbow, punch, elbow. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but he's notorious for that, right? And I knew him. I worked with him, right? And so this is going on, and my dad and I'm sitting there, and all my boys from Northside are behind him, and all of a sudden, all the McKees Rocks dudes start screaming, fuck you, ref. I'll kill you, ref. And my dad and my brother are sitting like this. We get the fuck out of here. Don't act like you know him, right? So one comes up to the ringside. He's right below me, and I always stood in the corner in between rounds, my hands behind my back, checking both corners out to make sure, everything was all right. If they needed to wipe it up, and if they were getting close to the bell. And next thing you know, some dude comes up beside me and said, "Fuck you, ref! I'll fucking stab you." I'm like, "Get in line, motherfucker!"
Yeah, it's like, all right, tell me how you really feel.
Right up in Erie, it happened in Erie a couple times. I remember doing a fight. It was a tough guy contest at Penn State at the Bryce Jordan Center. And it was $10,000 prize. And there was a lot of people in it. But I noticed there were 6 referees. It was all day long. Ron Robin, just keep going until the 2 champions ended up together in one day. You might have 3 or 4 fights.
A lot of fighting.
So next thing you know, I've been watching this one kid. Boy, he was a nice boxer. Next thing you know, I'm watching this other kid that's making it through the other bracket. He's a bruiser. He's so roided out. He's taking roid rages and trying to tackle fighters in the ring. And he's throwing them up because they're not stopping the fight. He's throwing them off like, he can tackle me whenever he wants to tackle me. He just put his head down and run into the guys. So don't I get him to the champ? When it came to the championship fight, all the referees were talking. Nobody wanted to do it. I said, I'll do it. Anyhow, anytime I can get a championship fight on my belt, I'm doing it. And I said, I know what I'll do. I'll head it off at the pass. And I usually talk to the fighters beforehand anyhow. So I go in the dressing room and I said, hey, my man, he's squeezing. He's giving me most muscular poses. I'm talking to him. His veins are like fucking popping out on him. And he's like practically frothing at the mouth. And I said, listen, I need you to stay calm here. I said, there's no tackling in this game. I said, there's no kicking, none of it. None of it. Oh, yeah. He said, yeah. I said, all right, then we're clear, right? I'll take points off you. I'll disqualify you. I said, none of the other referees want to do you because of it. But I'm giving you a chance here. Prove me wrong. So anyhow, he says, okay, ref, no problem. I walk away. I'm 2 steps from him, and all of a sudden I hear boom. He grabbed one of the metal cans underneath the Bryce Jordan Center and threw it against the wall. And it banged like I thought it was a gunshot, right? I'm like turning around, and he just kept walking the other way. So I get in the ring, blah, blah, blah. This boxing kid, every time he went to move, boom. Move, boom. He hit him with that jab. This guy was so frustrated, he put his gloves between his legs and tried to pull the gloves off so he could get his hands on this fucking kid.
Jeez.
When he couldn't get the gloves off, he was already done in this mode. He just run head first right into him. He's going by me. The guy's backing up. I grab onto him. The 3 of us go right through the ropes, off the judge's table, and onto the floor. Now, I knew I was okay because I was landing on top of him, right? We get back up, and I'm like, fuck, Rick. You got to make a decision here,
at that
man.
moment.
You got to make a decision here. I get in the ring. I don't tell anybody. And I get everybody back in the ring and all this stuff, and I walk over to the judge, and I say, he's disqualified. Other judge, he's disqualified. Other judge, he's disqualified. I look up, and I see all the cops standing in the back of the thing. I'm up there going, waving them up. Come on up.
Might as well start.
Come on up. So anyhow, he didn't realize, the Roy dude did not realize that I had stopped the fight. They're taking the other guy's gloves off. He can't figure out what's going on. The announcer comes in, ding, 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 ding. He's in La La Land. He don't know who to go after, right? And I'm keeping him and the ring announcer in between us, right? And I went over and raised that kid's hand. I shot right under them fucking ropes, and he's in the ring roaring like a lion, right? Right to my car. Goodbye.
Yeah, well, there comes a moment where, like, you've just shown that you're unsafe, you're not controlled, and this is no longer a boxing match.
Yeah.
You want to do MMA? There's a show for that.
Yeah.
There's a show for that.
This was like in early 2000.
That's wild.
And I also went up there. I did the Oberkar fight back in the day. He was out of Detroit. Oberkar was a great fighter, but Jerry Cooney, and I've met so many people. And I was with Jerry Cooney. He is the nicest guy. And when I come out of the ring, he called me over. It was an ESPN fight, and he calls me over. And I'm thinking, when he was fighting Larry Holmes for that title, Big Cat Pat, you know Pat Mullins and all them guys from the North Side?
No, I know of them.
I'll introduce you to him. But anyhow, they call him the mayor of North Side. It's all bullshit, but they call him that.
I'm just the host.
He got his finger on all the pulse, right? And he's 80-some years old, and we still work out together, you know? So as it turns out, you know, we get this thing going on. He's like, you know, Pat's the type of guy, you know. Oh, that's my train of thought. Wait 1 second. We were talking about
Roid guy going through the ring. You left.
Yeah, but there was another time I was bringing up another time about fighting. Oh well, that's a senior moment.
Hey, that happens to me, so I hope it's not a senior moment.
Yeah. So, you know, with all these fighters and all the things that are going on in fighting right now, you had asked me that before. Some of the things that I see is, number one, all the trainers are kind of like on the same page. All the promoters are trying to help each other out. That wasn't the case back in the day. So that's one change I see. The fighters, MMA, boxing, whatever it is, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, these guys are serious. They're training their asses off. They're training their asses off because there's a lot more opportunities today to make a buck at this than there was back when I was fighting. That's why I never turned pro, because there wasn't any money in the lightweights until Sugar Ray Leonard in '80, you know, won the Olympics and turned pro. You know, so that's kind of why I stayed. When they were asking me to turn pro, and they asked my dad, it was Gleason's gym in New York. A guy from Gleason's called my dad up, and my dad said no. He's not coming up to live in New York. He's still in high school. Nope. So I was lucky enough, like I said, going back to my dad, that I had somebody to do that. Would I have went myself? It was me, yeah, to train at Gleason's gym in New York City, turn pro, yeah. But, you know, the chances of me making $80 and then of all things, I got the steam fitters. I passed the test and I got into family trade, and that kind of kept me grounded, you know. And then I knew, and then I started refereeing, you know, judging and refereeing and all that, you know. And some of the fights I did, you know, that Coronet fight, when Spadafora did him, here I had my son up here from Florida. And my son was a surfer down there. His son, he's from Australia. His son was a surfer. And his son was with him. So they were commiserating. I kept my distance because I'm refereeing him championship fight. But it's okay that my son's friends with his kid, right? Next thing you know, I'm doing, it comes the 11th round. Spadafora cut him up so bad, I stopped it in the 11th round because I knew he had kids at home. And I knew he was at the end of his career. This never happens. When I stopped the fight, I just hugged him. I just grabbed him and held him. He was exhausted. He held on to me, wrapped his arms around me, and he whispered in my ear, "Thank you. Thank you." He wasn't quitting.
Well, that's another thing to take into account, man. When you have two people in this ring, they will go until the ref stops it.
They're trained for that.
Yeah, and it's like you dive into this place where there's no quit. There's just go, go, go. And like we like to think like, oh, when they're done, they'll be done, right? They'll bow out or whatever that may be.
No.
Some of these, a lot of these people now, they'll just go until
you got to save them.
Physically can't go anymore.
They're their own worst enemies, especially the guys that keep coming back and won't quit. You know, we won't mention any names here, but we know who we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
There's a handful of guys that won't quit. And I get that part of it because that's all they know. They weren't lucky enough or blessed enough or had enough fortitude to go after something else. Like you said, I had a backup plan. It wasn't in my head. My backup plan was, what am I doing next, God? Where am I going? You know? And he guided me through to here, speaking with you, the Joe Rogan of Pittsburgh. How the fuck did that happen? How the fuck did that happen?
Is that gonna stick? That's not the first time I've heard that. I'm like, damn. Like, that's a compliment. I appreciate it.
It's the truth.
Big shoes to fill.
I just listened to him the other day. He had what's his name? The movie producer Peter Berg.
Yeah,
he had him on. Did you listen to that podcast?
I listened to snippets. So like his episodes are like 3, 4, like they're long. So I'll take snippets.
So I did snippets too. But what I got out of that was he has a gym, and I've been there before in Santa Monica. It used to be tied in with Freddie Roach's, and then of all things, Eddie Hearns bought it. But Peter Berg goes there and trains, and so does Canelo's been there and all these guys. And Peter Berg's like a mainstay. And Joe Rogan was talking with him about it, and he said it was the worst decision I ever made owning the gym, because he owned it at one time. He said it was the worst decision I made. Here he has a fighter, and the girlfriend's from Russia, and she donated $51 to the Russian kids to help them out from here in America because she has dual citizenship. She went back to see her mother. They arrested her.
Because she donated $51.
Yep. And she's going to get 12 years in prison. And Peter Berg's talking with Trump about it, and Dana White's trying to help, and all these people. But, you know, he's got a lot of things going on. It wears him down. And you can imagine that fighter. He's looking for somebody to help him. Like, where do you go other than Peter Berg? Who do you know, that knows people like Dana White? And, you know?
Yeah, someone with influence who can...
Someone with influence. And look how tight Dana White is with Trump and that now, you know? Or always has been. I don't know. You know, I didn't pay attention to that, but he sure come out for him, you know, during the elections and whatnot. And so he got the line, right? You need somebody with the line.
Yeah.
Right?
Make the line.
Make the line.
We need to make the line.
Right.
You have a cool story that I want to hear in regards to attending the Steelers Super Bowl. What's that?
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you that.
I want to hear it firsthand.
You know, I wished it wouldn't have taken this long for people to really want to know about it. But I got a call for a couple months and a half ago from a producer, similar podcast guy, similar to yourself. His name is Bo Walsh, and he's in San Francisco. And his podcast is with NPR.
Yeah.
And so we did a whole thing. He rented a place for me to go in and do this, you know. In fact, the next time they rent, I'll mention to him, maybe you could do it here.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do it here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I did the
Doors
one on
always
Babcock.
open.
There's one on Babcock.
I've heard of it.
Right where that dance.
I haven't been in.
It's right where it's nice. It's right where that dance thing is. They do a lot of commercials there and whatnot. You know.
Okay.
And I remember the guy telling me that runs it. He did a lot of football stuff with Lynn Swan and Franco Harris and people like that over the years. You know, and some of the movie actors that come to Pittsburgh to do stuff when they got to do a commercial for something, they hire that place. You know, so I'm good to know there's another entity I can give them.
You got the line.
Right, I got the
You
line.
got the line.
You got to get the line. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I love. Not to get off topic, remind me where we're at about Superstore, but that's what I love about Pittsburgh. I got people. You know when they say Hollywood and people say I got people, I got people too.
Same. Dude. And since starting this podcast, I've formed so many connections. Like Hutch, Shane, they're all texting me now. Like, hey, bro. Like I texted Hutch. I was like, hey, man, good fight, good show. Like we've developed this network, and like a lot of the guys meet for like a leadership kind of thing, and everyone kind of connects with each other. And the beautiful thing is Hunter with 247. I'm here at the brewery.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, we're looking for a beer sponsor for the arena. Like, do you know? I'm like, actually, I do. Connect these two. I met this guy through Shane, Savage Gentleman. I was doing the podcast, meeting people in different areas, doing it out of my real estate office. Shane's like, hey, I got a guy who's got a bunch of offices. You should hit him up. Like everything's connected. David Allen, the suit man, the clothes man.
I know.
He's set to be on here, and I've met him through. A lot of people mention his name. Half the guests wear his suits, and then I'm at a holiday party, and some guy's like, "Oh, dude, you gotta meet this guy." Introduced me to his assistant, and then she's like, "Oh, he'd love to be on. We got to put him on. Reach out to us." I'm like, "Oh, cool." I reach out to him. He's like, hey, I'm working on a lot of things. Message me after March 10th. I'm like, oh, okay. I see pictures of him posting photos with John Cena, Big Show, The Rock, because he did their suits. He had the Super Bowl stuff going on. I'm like, holy fuck. How did I get access to this guy?
Yeah.
Just meeting people.
Yeah.
And being cool and being intentional, like with good intention.
Yeah, but not many of them met like we met, how I got on here.
Yeah.
Right.
So, he was all over the road. And
Yeah. Right.
I'm running traffic because I don't do it a lot. So this is one of those moments of like, hey, run traffic. So I'm like, okay.
It's drizzling out. It's drizzling out.
Yeah, it's raining and I have to run traffic. So I'm miserable. I hate doing it. I freaking pull him over. I'm like, when I'm forced to run traffic, I'll pull people over, let them know we're out there, have a conversation. Hey, you're good to go. Unless you do something crazy and egregious.
Yeah.
So I pull him over, and I'm like, fuck, it's the commissioner. Yeah, and the cool thing about it, you didn't name drop or anything. I'm just like, all right, we're talking, and Devin comes up. I'm like, oh, I know, I know Devin too. We start talking. I go back to my car. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, I'm sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll make it 5-10 minutes. Yes, this does happen.
Yep.
Get back to the car, got you on your way. But yeah, that's how
I gotta say, it was the quickest I've ever been let go.
Wow.
It was quick because I don't know if I look suspicious or what. The way you walked up to the truck.
Probably deal with people differently. Probably deal with cops on a different reason.
I didn't start off with what I do.
Yeah, no,
right?
You're just like,
yeah.
Here we are in the rain.
Here's my license.
Yeah, I know you don't want to do this. No, it was a good moment. And then
it was.
And then, just in our circles, we connect again, yeah. And that's the story we talk about.
Well, we're in the same business in a lot of ways. We're the same kind of guy. We like the, I don't know you personally, but we, obviously we like the same kind of shit, and that's what I prided myself my whole life in doing what the shit I like to do. And this is it. I've been to fights all over the world, through my job and through refereeing and whatnot, and I met so many people. And I meet people all the time that come up to me, especially since I just got taken Hall of Fame and it was on the news. People are coming up to me in church and going, hey, I don't even know a Hall of Famer, man. I want to shake your hand. And it's a different mode. It's like, I don't want to put too much on it, but it's the pinnacle for me.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a pinnacle. It's another step. It's put it this way.
It's a notch on your belt.
It's that, and it helps me to help more people. Like it's almost like
Legitimizes
me
you. Yeah.
to where they say, hey, he's a Hall of Famer. And he just come up and said, I'm a good fighter. This little kid up at the gym, it was one of Steve Fitter's kids, his first fight. He'd get the shit beat out of him. He did not quit. He's out in the hallway and he's got blood all over his face, all over his shoulder. And I turn around and I go, I'm going to talk to that boy. I went up. His mom let me go. They walked away. She took a picture of us, me talking to him. And I said, hey, man, I've been where you're at. I know what that feels like. It's horrible, but guess what? That L's not a loss. You're young. I said, that's a learn.
Yeah.
You just learned something.
If you take all your losses as what can I change? And like I had someone on here, Josh Ramirez, and he's like, dude, like the biggest thing I took from my loss, it was like it's one of the only loss at this time. He said, I left knowing what I had to change the outcome of that fight.
Yeah.
And you can't put money on that.
And you can only know that by testing it.
Yes.
It's a process that you gotta, but you can't just say, oh, in theory, I'll beat his ass. No.
Let's test it.
You got to figure him out and then test your theory against his theory.
Yeah, you walking away from an L, what can I do to change this outcome?
And that little kid, by the time he was done, and just how I am, I just happened to have a wet paper towel in my hand, and I wiped all the blood off of him. Because I remember I hated blood on me, and I remember my dad wiping all that blood off me because my nose bled a lot, and I didn't mind my blood, but I didn't want nobody else's blood on me or sweat.
Yeah, and you don't know whose it is. You're like, just take it off. We'll be safe. Take it off.
Yes.
No, but that influence definitely puts you in a different realm to be able to give back to what's given you so much, right? You've got
with some cred.
Yeah.
With some cred.
Absolutely.
And it's not bullshit cred. They don't hand them out, especially the PA Boxing Hall of Fame. For Western PA guys, they're in eyedroppers. They're not in buckets like in Philadelphia. Because there's so many good fighters in Philadelphia and so many people. That doesn't make them better than us. It's just them recognizing us by me, by Brian Minto, by Tommy Ankello, by Spadafora getting in. And we're fighting for Sammy Vasquez. We're fighting for Monty Mesa Clay. They're in eyedroppers, though.
And that speaks volume that you're not even in there yet, and you're already pushing all those around you.
Been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And then a writer said, why isn't Rick Steigerwald in there? Right? And I didn't know from a keg of soap. He knew all about me. He's a writer for boxing.
Yeah, that's scary.
He knew, yeah.
So tell me about this. How'd you know about that?
Yeah. And you know what? He's 80-some years old. He's eccentric, but he's a good dude, man.
Well, that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
So the Super Bowl story, if you want to get to that.
Yeah, I do. We'll end with the big story.
I'll leave some stuff out, but if you want to know the story, it's, there's, when they brought me out to Hollywood to do this true story with Ed Helms and Russell Parks, and when I was a movie star for 4 days.
Yeah, what was that? Southpaw, Foxcatcher.
Yeah.
There was another one.
So I did The Men Who Built America, too. I was one of the mill workers that the Pinkertons were shooting down in West Virginia, I didn't have a speaking part in that. But, them other movies, I knew I was going to get a speaking part. And like with Foxcatcher, Bennett Miller that did that, Moneyball.
Yeah.
I was just one of the coaches, supposed to be one of the coaches at the Olympics. And, Kurt Angle was coming in.
How
how
did you get that? Like,
so
they just called you?
I put my name in like everybody else. When they come to, with Pittsburgh Film Office, you put your name. They're asking for people. You put your name in, resume, picture, blah blah blah. I got called. I went out there. They wanted me to be in a blue suit, like I was one of the Olympic officials with the patch. And next thing you know, we all met in this one room where he was training. That was the Schultz brothers. Won the 84 Olympics in 2 different weight divisions,
Yeah.
Roman Greco. One was crazy, and the other one Mark Ruffalo played was the calm one who kept him together. And they were at Oklahoma, and they got, they wanted to fire Mark. And he was like, because he was the crazy brother, and they want to keep him. He goes, no, we're a team.
Package deal.
And that's how they ended up out at Numbnuts place in Pennsylvania. Famous, what was his name? He opened the wrestling club out there. The dad was real rich. It'll come to me in a minute because I had read the whole story, did my homework beforehand. I knew what was up. Anyhow, we're in this room, and out of nowhere, I'm just standing there with the rest of the guys. Bennett Miller walks back out of the room. And next thing you know, the PA comes up and says, oh, okay. She says, come on with me. We're going back to the trailer, the clothes trailer. And everybody's like doing something with their clothes or ad, and he didn't like the look of it or something like that. And they say, no, you take the coat off. You're going to be one of the coaches.
Okay.
Right? I said, all right. She goes, it's probably a speaking part. Boom, I knew what that meant. That meant more money. That meant above minimum wage, right? So anyhow, it turned out Bennett Miller wanted me and another guy who was the wrestling coach. He was a walk-on at Pitt and a wrestling coach there. He already picked him for the part. They wanted us to read against each other. They took us down. This was West Mifflin School. That's where they shot it at. And they took us downstairs, and he had to read a part. They told him what to say. He had to read a part. Then they had me do it. And then Bennett Miller said, say it this way this time. And I said it that way. And I almost added it like I do in a corner. My slang, my Pittsburghese, And he walks out. We're looking at the PA. She goes, let's go to lunch. So we go to lunch, and everybody's in there. And all of a sudden, I get my food, and there's nowhere to sit. That's how many people were there. And it has the best food. They got the best people for the food trucks and all that stuff. The best food. I'm looking for a place. Mark Ruffalo goes, Rick. Mark Ruffalo. Sit with us. And it was the Schultz brother's wife, the one that got shot, and it was, killed.
Yeah.
And it was his brother, that's still alive, the crazy one, and his wife, and it was like all these celebrities. And I'm sitting there, so Mark Ruffalo saying, how you doing, Rick? He said, I knew you were going to get the part because when I got there in the morning, they took me right to they want to put prosthetic ears on me. They took me right to the trailer. I walk in, Mark Ruffalo sitting in a barber chair, and he goes, hey, Rick, how you doing? I'm like, how the fuck does Mark Ruffalo know who the fuck I am?
It's a good sign.
Walkie-talkies. He's on his way. The referee, the judge. Everybody knows. Everybody got a thing. Get him over here right away, Blah, blah, blah. So anyhow, I see somebody to my left. I turn and look. It's Channing Tatum. He's got his singlet on, and they're spray painting. He's like this. They're spray painting his tattoos because Schultz didn't have any tattoos. He goes, hey, what's up, man?
You tell me.
He goes, we're going to have fun.
See, that's awesome. All these doors open, just you doing something you love.
And tenacity, right? I wasn't afraid. I didn't back down. It was just like the way I went into the ring. I didn't back down. Straight ahead, keep moving. Bob, weave, move, whatever happens. Okay, fuck you. You can't go in there. Yeah, I'll go in the window, right? My whole life. And that's, the Super Bowl. So in 70, 79, 80, a lot of things had happened to me, and I told you I had been married, and it didn't work out, and blah, 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 blah. And I was doing visitation rights and this and that, and all of a sudden, the night after I fought in the Golden Gloves, the next morning, my son's missing. And it took me 4 years to find him. I'm not going to get into all that, but it happened. I had Teresa Rocco, the missing persons for the city police. She was like my mom, my second mom, trying to help me find him. We weren't reciprocal with Florida. So we couldn't do anything, right? Anyhow, get through that. That was hard. That still bugs me today. But get through that. My brother calls me up and he goes, hey, he said, we made a pact in the beginning of the season. We're going to go to every game this year, and we ain't paying a dime because we're a part of the Steelers. They need us. We're like, okay. This is us drinking in the wood. You know what I'm talking about.
I like it.
So anyhow, we went to every game that year. We climbed in the stadium. We rushed the gate. If you Three River Stadium, it was like 30 feet long mesh gate. You know how heavy that is? 20 people would run over that we didn't know and would lift it up. 10 would climb under. They'd hold it until the other ones got under and just kept getting under. And then the guards would be running down, chasing you, be jumping over the turnstiles. Punches were being thrown. Just keep running. Fan out.
Yeah, you can't catch all of us.
Nope. And we're in the crowd. We went to every game, even the playoff games, like that. Then we found out, and then we had a buddy that worked there. And then all we had to do was go up to the ticket taker. It was so close to legit, I almost believed it was legitimate. So for $5 rolled up, slip mat. When they rip the tickets off, some people don't want them, right? No, you keep them, right? They give you the ticket stub. walk in the gate, right? And you get in there and you just fan out and find a seat, right? And my biggest, a lot of times, a lot of winners, the most fun that season was when Bum Phillips, Houston Oilers, were talking about he's coming to Pittsburgh to kick the door in. Not only didn't that happen, but we got to go to the Super Bowl of it. They brought the Montour Band in, and they were right down below us. And we were so happy that they won, that we were bombing them with snowballs. The whole fucking band. They were going in the tubas, you know. The band leader had to move them over a whole section to get them away from us because we wouldn't
Y'all
let
were
up.
menaces, bro.
We
Menaces.
were criminals, right? Well, hooligans, not criminals. But we had fun with that. Anyhow, we do all that. My brother calls me up, and we're steam fitting, and I'm working on it. I'm working on it Clearton, and he calls me up and he goes, "Oh," he goes, "You want to go to Super Bowl?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, we're renting Winnebago up there, and you know that Winnebago place, the only one that was around then up in Zooey, and there's a bunch of other guys from the corners going to go too." I said, "All right." So I said one thing. We stop in Florida and we look for Ricky because we had to go to Miami. It was at the Orange Bowl. Okay, yeah, good. We go there. I was this close to finding him. I find the aunt. She put the word out, and that ended up being the connection, and I got to see my son again, which was great. Whatever route I had to take, them 4 years were excruciating. And whatever route I had to take, if that's the route, I wasn't happy about it, but that's the route. We go to the Super Bowl. We get down to Miami. We were drinking so much, I couldn't piss right. Right? And pissing in as you're driving in Winnipeg is not easy anyhow. But and I'm not going to sit down like, you know, if I needed a break like that, if I was out somewhere, I might sit down if it looked clean, you know what I mean? To take a rest and take a leak, right? I'm not sitting down, not with my brothers and my cousin in the Winnebago. So you're holding on the wall and you're trying to go, blah, blah, blah. We get all the way down there. And we're in the Orange Bowl parking lot, and there was 9 million buses and 9 million Winnebagos, and their guys were parking them. Parking them. They were all in rows, right? And so we pull in there and blah blah blah. Well, what had happened was we kind of I got a picture of the Orange Bowl, see what it looked like, and I made a grappling hook. It worked. And the first grappling hook was out of 1/2-inch regular steel, carbon steel. And I couldn't even throw it 10 feet in the air. And I needed at least to get up to that fence up there they had a ring around the Orange Bowl. To get it up there, I needed something light. So I made it out of stainless 3/8. And it looked like the Batmobile, the Batman one, you know, that shot out of his thing. And I had it on a lighter rope with knots in it. And I had it, again, no gym bags. I had it in the Gerber's bag, right? That's an old shopping place on McKnight Road. I had it in a Gerber's bag. So the morning of the Super Bowl, I always get up early. My brother had been, the night before, he was arm wrestling. He was a champion here in Pittsburgh. He was arm wrestling up the street in a bar, and all of a sudden everybody comes running down and says, "You got to come." He beat this big guy, and the guy suckered him across the table. Well, anyhow, when I got there, the bouncers already took care of it, and he was going partying somewhere else. Go back next day, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go and look for a spot to get in." I said, "You want to come?" He said, "No." He said, I'm trying to straighten out here, you know? I'm like, all right. So anyhow, I go over and I'm standing there, I'm looking, you know, this is about 3-4 hours before the Super Bowl, and I'm looking and figuring out, okay, now I noticed the cops. They're on horses. There goes 4 cops. They're directly across from each other around the stadium. So as they're turning, so now I'm standing there and I'm timing how long it's taking them to get around each time. So I know how much time I got to go over, throw this up and climb the fuck up there. Next thing you know, I hear Stag. We talked about that before, about my nickname. I look around, it's a guy I grew up with. Real big guy, you know. He's 6'2", you know, $185. He comes over and he goes, "What's up, man?" We're hugging and all shit. He goes, "What are you doing?" He said, "You got tickets?" I said, "Yeah, right here." The grappling hook was my ticket. He said, "I'm going with you." I said, "All right." He didn't have a ticket either. He said, "I'm going with you." He said, "All right." So we're looking and looking. The next time, like almost right after that, the next time the cops were opposite each other and there was room to move, out of nowhere, 20 people run down and are popping themselves up on to the rain roof. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, We better go now, right? So I threw the grappling hook, figuring we didn't need it, in the bushes, in the bag. We ran over people we don't even know. They popped us up on the ring. Now the cops get there, and everybody's trying to climb a 12-foot tufted fence. And you know, if you're on the edge of being a criminal at all, I don't know of your former life, but you know, climbing them fences, you climb them this way and not this way because they're sharp and they'll cut your fingers.
I've heard.
I climbed up the top. Somebody told me to. Yeah. That's how I knew. So anyhow, I get to the top. I'm the only one that made it to the top. My buddy's halfway up. He goes, I can't make it. His hand's bleeding, blah, blah, blah. I climb back over and drop my leg down and tell him to grab onto my leg. I'm thinking he's going to do this, you know? No, he lets go completely. He's dangling, 180 pounds is dangling from my leg. I'm like, oh, shit. So I pull myself up far enough that I can turn myself around and bend over. He's hanging from my leg like this. And luckily, 2 old guys come running down the ramp from Pittsburgh, had tassel hats on. This is Miami. You got tassel hats on and winter coats. They go, let us help you. They reach over and they grab him, they pull him over. Now the cops are sitting down below on the horses like this. And there's a crowd. And when we get up, people are cheering. And we're like this, going like this. So what are we, 3.5 hours early for the Super Bowl? So we're going in and we're going down the ramp. He goes, where are we going to sit? I said, well, if I went after all that, I'm sitting on the 50. So back in the day, all the Steelers used to stand, the ones that weren't playing used to stand on the bench. So I moved enough that we could see over top of their heads. So we're right on the 50, and we're probably 60 seats back, so we can see almost the whole field with them standing on the bench. Oh, I calculated all this shit.
Yeah, dude, that's intense.
Right? Oh, it gets more intense. So as it turns out, we're there, and all of a sudden, you know, Anita Bryant sitting in front of me, you know, all these celebrities, Don Shula's sitting across from me with his family. I go over, of course, I'm going to introduce myself to him, you know, from Miami Dolphins, Don Shula and his family. And he introduced me to his family. He must think I'm somebody because I'm sitting on a 50. And the next thing you know, the game's getting ready to start, and our whole row is empty, just for me and my buddy sitting on the end. And all of a sudden he says, hey, there's a guy. He came down, he's down at the other end. 2 guys were sitting there. I said, so what? That's way down. There's 40 seats down. Next thing you know, this guy comes walking up. And he goes, hey, you guys have tickets for them seats? I stood up and I said, who the fuck are you, the ticket taker? He says, no, that's my line, right? You a ticket taker?
Ticket taker.
Parking lot attendant.
I'm going to use that the next fight scene.
Parking lot attendant.
What are you, a ticket taker? I'm the fucking commissioner. Oh, okay.
Right? So next thing you know, he goes, no. He didn't want no part of me. He goes, no, this is from our company from New York. We got this whole row. They're not coming. They're all hungover and drunk in a hotel room. They don't care about the Steelers. You know, they don't care. I said, in Dallas, they don't care. I said, you mean we got this whole row? Now my business agent comes up, and he's a big shot because he's on city council too, and he comes walking by. And I knew his wife, you know, from my dad, and were friends with him. And he's looking like, wait, I'm up there. How the fuck is he down here? Because I was already in my seat, right? And I said, Jim, where are you sitting? Joan, where are you sitting at? They're like, oh, we're up there like 10 seats behind or something. I said, don't sit up there.
Sit in my section.
Sit here. I felt so good doing that.
So the moral of the story, this is the premise of the podcast. If you want something bad enough, you'll find a way.
Yeah. So now it's getting, a lot of things happen during the game. Fucking with people. I ran into a friend of mine, and I hadn't seen in years, that moved to Florida to clean pools. And I just yelled his name. He came out down below me where you come out of the stadium, you know, you come to get in your seats. And he walked out, but he had longer hair than that. I yelled, Freddie, and he didn't answer. So anyhow, we're talking, and my buddy goes, hey, that guy's calling you. It was Freddie. He comes up. I got him sitting with us. He's got a bottle of tequila. Whoop. That handled everything. There was no stopping after that. No chasers, no nothing. I end up in the bathroom with Myron Cope. Terrible towel, Myron Cope.
Oh, yeah.
And his dad, who had a trench coat on just like him. They look like 2 midgets with trench coats on, taking a piss in the tank. And I'm rapping with them, right? And anyhow, I go back to the seat, blah, blah, blah. There's a guy from Dallas by me. He's on the wrong side completely. And I bet him while Bradshaw was throwing the ball in there, $20 that Swan would catch this ball. Right? It was Swan or Blunt. $20. He catches it with one hand. Touchdown. Guy gave my money. $20 in my pocket. I was pretty broke. It helped.
You got seats, tequila, and money.
My buddy says to me, hey, the countdown's, it's just ready, the countdown's ready to start. He said, the guy that I got in with, he says, hey, he said, let's go get the game ball. I'm like, that's a great fucking idea. So we go down by the fence, right? Right where the fence. They get cops every 6 feet all the way around to protect the players or you to get on the field. And they got batons, right? You think that even, like would say, don't go out there. They got 2-foot clubs, right?
It's those beer muscles we were talking about.
Right? The Tequila muscles. No, they're better than beer
Tequila
muscles. They're better than beer muscles. So anyhow, I said, I'm going. As soon as, one of them turn around, I'm going, right? Well, as it turns out, somebody set off one of them cannons on the other side of the field. And the boom, you could feel the boom. You know what I'm talking about? The ones you load, you load them up with gunpowder. I guess that's what it was. And it was boom, and everybody ducked, including all them cops, looking to the direction it came from. By the time they turned back around, I was beside him going, what the fuck?
Did you see that?
He looked at me. He goes like this. I was behind him. He looks at me, he goes, and he looks at my clothes. Of all things, we had T-shirts on. My mom bought us all knowing we were going to Super Bowl. It said, they were gold. It said Champ City, Steelers and all that. And I had black sweatpants on. Same thing the ball boys had on. Same ensemble. I don't know if David Allen did them, but same ensemble, right? So the cop just looked, he's like, oh, okay. He looked at what I had on. He's like, oh, okay. Guess he's a ball boy. I go out. My buddy didn't make it. I go out in the field. The ball's gone. I'm like, fuck. I look. I see all the players running around the stadium. I just followed them. And I get there, and all the media's right there, and we're going, and all the players are going right in. And what they did use down there was the University of Miami front line as a locker room security. They had big orange coats on, it said Miami University and that. And these kids were baby-faced, but they were 360 pounds. 6'7", 8", right? Oh. They stopped the media, and I'm right in the pile of media. And they said, we'll let you in as soon as everybody gets ready. We'll let you in. Stay calm. I'm standing like this. I'm like, nobody sees me. And as soon as he opened that door, I grabbed onto one of them wires from one of them fucking cameras, like I was fucking helping. I go in the door. Who's the first person I see up on the podium? Terry Bradshaw. I went right over to him. I said, dude, the best fucking game I've ever seen in my life. He bends down, shakes my hand, kind of look at me like, who the fuck are you? And I said, that was the greatest, man. You are the baddest, right? I leave him. I turn around. There's chaos going. There's jock straps being shot at each other. There's champagne being poured on each other. It was chaos. It was like a gauntlet of chaos. And at the end of that chaos in the locker room was my neighbor, Jack Delaplane. He was my neighbor. Him and my mom had, after he was done practice every morning with the Steelers, he was out of Pottstown. Went to Salem College, and that old man Rooney had a pension of getting Division III players because he was friends with all the coaches that nobody knew about. He had 4.3 speed and 40, 240-pound running back, right?
Dude, how does that, everything just kind of
fell into place. It did. I still, to this day, I remember it like it was yesterday because when I looked at him, he was like looking at me like, he had his arms out and he's going, he was sitting at his locker, just took his shoulder pads off. He still had his pants on. He's like, what the fuck?
Media.
So I made myself all the way through, and I get to him, and there's a seat next to him at the bench. And I sit down and I said, he goes, how the fuck did you get in here? I said, you think you're the only fucking superstar from Northside? Fuck you. That's how we talked to each other, right? You wouldn't even know he was a Steeler. I didn't know he was a Steeler for the first 2 or 3 times I met him. Country bumpkin, wouldn't believe, but what a great athlete, Jack. I miss him. He passed away 2 years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he was. We were same age and everything, I mean, it got to the point where him and my mom, I didn't live at home, and neither my brothers, that I would go to the house, and after he was down in practice, he would stop, go over, and he wouldn't go to his house. His wife was in charge of, she was a nurse at AHN, but she was head of cardiac care. So he wouldn't go home. He didn't have any kids. He'd go sit with my mom and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes.
Dude, small world.
Right? So it got to the point where we'd fucking go there and he'd be there again. We'd say, get the fuck out of here. He thought he was one of the Steigerwald boys. He thought he was the 6th Steigerwald boy. So I said to him, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like 6, 7 reporters come running up to me with microphones. No cameras, just microphones. And they're going, Rick, can we do an interview with you? I lean over to him and I go, do they know me? Now I'm thinking they're Pittsburgh, press or somebody, No, they were from the state of Washington. That's where one of the players, what it ended up happening was, I said, they know me. He said, no, you're Rick Moser's locker. I said, where's he at? He said, he's gone. He was pissed he didn't get to play. He backed up Franco. And remember, Franco was hurt before that in the playoff game. And he played, and he thought he'd get in the Super Bowl, but he didn't. So he didn't change, no Shire for him. Boom, right? He's gone. I said, watch this. So they started asking me these questions about Chuck Noll and how all that went. And I said, hey, we had a plan. Chuck had a plan. We just followed it. No big deal.
You made his interview.
And here's what it said. Chuck Noll's mantra back then was whatever it takes, we'll do it. And that was the North Side. That was Pittsburgh's mantra. Whatever it takes. We don't care. It had it on the shirts. Whatever it takes. Champ City. Next thing you know, they're interviewing me. He's sitting down there. He's still in his locker taking his shit off. He's like, I can't fucking believe this. So I'm giving the interview, and all of a sudden, in the middle of this interview, one of them says to me, well, hey, you know what? We know you want to take a shower. We don't want to hold you up anymore, but we wanted to know, can we come back after you get your shower? I thought, shower? I'm gamey from the tequila and climbing in the stadium. I look over, there's if anybody's ever been in a professional locker or any locker room, there's usually a cart with towels on it and shampoo and all that shit, and a towel boy. And I look over at that, and I look at Jack, and he said, you're not. I said, the fuck I'm not. And I said, thanks, man. Come back when I'm done. I went over and got 2 towels, took all my shit off. There's my skinny little white ass. Although I got to tell you, I was pretty big. I was like 165, lifting a lot, My upper body, but this dude was 6'2".
Yeah, a little different.
Right? A little different. But if I was sitting, maybe they could say that. And maybe that's what happened. Now I'm standing on a locker. I'm taking he said, I can't fucking believe you're doing this. I said, I'm fucking gaming. I'm getting a shower. So I wrap the towel around me. He does whatever he does. I go over, I go in the locker room, and I'm in the middle of sea of 6'8" guys, right? And there's one shower open, and it's right beside like Elsie Greenwood, who's almost 6'9", right? And I could tell him eyeball me, like I felt it. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, how are you going to get out of this one, right? Because that's the first moment I thought, it's winding down. You better get your shit and get out while you can, I was having so much fun, though. And the next thing you know, I looked up at him and I said, hey, Elsie, great game. Shook hands. I said, Rick Steigerwald, Chuck Noll's nephew. I wasn't lying. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, he was married to a Steigerwald from the South Hills. And I knew his wife was a Steigerwald. So we got to be related somewhere, right? So I run that by him. You wouldn't believe how that changed the complexion of the whole scenario. He's introducing me to people. Where's Chuck's nephew?
Wild.
Blah, blah, blah. I get out of the locker room. I go over. I get back up on the bench. Jack's gone. Moser's gone. And I'm toweling off, and then reporters come back over. All of a sudden, Sidney Thornton, they called him Thunder Thighs because he had these big thighs. He was running back with Jack. He comes walking by and he sees these guys interviewing me. I'm standing on a bench. You can't miss me, right? And they're down below me with all these microphones up in my face. And I can't even remember what I was saying at that point because I knew it was winding down. And all of a sudden I heard him say, he's looking around. I could see him looking around. And he goes, "Who the fuck is this?"
And you're like, "Whoop!"
The alarms went off. I said, "I better get fucking going. Get your shit on and go." So I'm getting my shit on. He's making a thing of it. The reporters are like looking at him, looking at me. And next thing you know, God rest his soul, he just passed away. The equipment manager for the Steelers was Tony Parisi. Tony comes over. He looks up. You know, there's confusion. Him and Sidney are commiserating, and next thing you know, he walks over and he goes to grab me by the arm, like to tell them reporters, he's no Steeler. I said, "You better get the fuck off my arm." I had a direct shot down from him from that 2-foot bench. I said, "You better get the fuck off my arm." And he said, "That's it. I'm having you thrown out of here." He said, "You're no Steeler," like that, and they all slithered away, right? So now it's me, him, Sidney Thornton's behind him, and a couple other players. You know, it's thinning out now. And as he's walking away, you know, the typical North Side move is when somebody says they're going to get somebody on you, you tell them, "Get a couple. You're going to need them," right? And so he did. It was the University of Miami football team.
Oh, yeah.
The seemed to me 8-foot guys because I'm standing on the bench and they're still 1.5 feet taller than me. And the two young kids, bubble face, flush, you know, pink, you know, with these great big bodies, and they're just nice kids. And he's going on, throw them out naked. Throw me out naked. He said, "Throw me out naked." That one kid was he was polite boy, probably a farm boy, you know, and he pushes him aside and he says, "Sir, we got this. Go ahead." He turns back to me and he says, "Go ahead, put your clothes on." So I put my clothes on. They walked me to the door. They both slapped me 5. Remember back then it was Knuckles who was slapping 5?
Yeah.
The dude said, "That was a good move, man. I don't know how you fucking did it."
You have to respect the attempt, man.
So now I'm heading out. Like, you know, first I'm standing looking at the door like, fuck, nobody's going to believe that I did this. Nobody's going to believe it, right? So I turned around. There's a crowd going out from under the stadium on both sides. They had like a bullshit fence, little rope there, stay on the other side. And that's how all the players walked out and went right to the bus. So I'm walking out and people were yelling, "Rick, Rick," for autographs. So I'm Rick. So I go over. I guess they meant Moser. I went over and I scribbled Rick Stag, right? And I went to the other side. I did it all the way out.
How many people have Rick Stag autographs?
I do not know, but if somebody's out there that has that, please let me know. That's a collector's item. So I get there. The bus driver, he opens the door.
You don't get in.
I step up on the bus. Who is right in front of me at that first seat? Terry Bradshaw. I put my hand on his hand. I said, "Dude, best fucking game ever. You guys are badass." I yell, "You guys are badass." And everybody's like, "Yeah." All right. I know it's over. I turn around and I get off the bus. And now it's a sea of people I got to get through. And they're all patting me on the back. Like I'm a Steeler, but I'm just leaving the bus. I go over and I go in my Winnebago. My brother's on there. And I go, "Where the fuck you at?" Blah, 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 blah.
You
I said,
ain't
"Well,"
gonna believe this.
I said, "I just took a shot with the Steelers." My brother John goes, "Get the fuck out of here." I lean over and I said, "Smell my hair."
I don't know any other way to end this than with that.
Yeah.
And I was going to give you this in the beginning, but I'm glad I waited because this is the Relentless Project challenge coin. And if that's not relentless, I don't know what is, bro.
I'm going to tell you something, man. I've been blessed. Thank
That's
you
for
much.
you, brother.
Listen to me. I'll cherish this. You know, I do have like, they call it the Ricky Steigerwald Boxing Museum
Put that in
in
there.
my house. That's in there, man. That's in there. I want to buy a T-shirt and I can get one of them hats too whenever you get a chance.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get you one. Where can people follow you if they wanted to know more about your story or kind of just follow your journey and connect with you online?
Well, I'm on Instagram, you know, at official Rick Stag, you know, And I think it's the same thing on Facebook, you know. But I don't have any other accounts. I don't even know what I'm doing. I barely can get on a computer. The only reason I got a Facebook account is because my 50-year reunion, which was 3 years ago, from high school, you know, we had to do that to get on. And I went to my daughter and I said, hey, I got to get on Facebook. She said, no. I didn't even get it out of my mouth. She goes, no. And I go, if you don't teach me, I'm going to learn how to do it myself.
Relentless.
Relentless, my man.
Well, brother, this is the one with Rick Steigerwald, and we're out. Thank you for coming on, brother.
I want to thank you so much, man. I'm telling you, this was a great experience. You're a good dude. And if anybody's out there, this is the Joe Rogan of Pittsburgh right here, buddy.
I appreciate
My
that, brother.
man.
We're going to end with that.
Yeah.
Later.